Madara Uchiha, the greatest shinobi who ever lived, dropped 2 meteors on the battlefield. 2 whole meteors from space, and this man caught them, pushed one sideways, punched through the other, then looked Madara dead in the eyes and said, "Your turn."
The village of Konohagakure slept under a blanket of stars, but alleys don't sleep. Alleys, remember, this particular alley, wedged between a sake bar and an abandoned textile shop, stank of old rain and spilled liquor. It was the kind of place where stray dogs learned not to linger, where shadows pooled thick enough to drown in. And on this October night, under a moon fat and orange like a rotting pumpkin, 12 men had cornered an 8-year-old boy, 12 grown adults, civilians mostly. A couple of retired chunin who told themselves they still had the fire. They carried broken bottles, rusted pipes, and the righteous fury of people who needed something smaller than themselves to hate. The boy stood at the dead end of the alley. He was too big for 8. That was the first thing anyone ever noticed about him. He stood nearly 5 feet tall already, broad across the shoulders in a way that made his ragged clothes stretch at the seams. A massive tattered scarf wrapped around the lower half of his face, frayed and dark crimson, covering everything from the bridge of his nose to his collarbone. Above it, 2 blue eyes stared out at the mob with the warmth of a winter ocean. Naruto Uzumaki did not move. "There he is," slurred the man at the front. He had a bottle in one hand and a grudge older than the kid in front of him. "The demon brat. You think that scarf makes you look tough? You think hiding your ugly face makes you—" "Third man on the left," Naruto said. His voice was low. Not quiet, low, like it came from somewhere beneath the earth. The kind of voice that made you listen even when you didn't want to. "The leader. He is going to throw that pipe in 4 seconds. He'll aim for my head. He'll miss to the right." The third man on the left blinked. He looked at the pipe in his hand. Then he snarled and hurled it with everything he had. It whistled past Naruto's right ear by 6 inches. The alley went quiet. Naruto's right arm changed. There was no hand sign. No burst of chakra visible to civilian eyes. The arm simply stopped being an arm. From the elbow down, it became something dense, something that stretched and swelled and caught the moonlight with a sheen like wet clay. Dark, sticky, impossibly thick. Mochi. Living, breathing mochi that dripped from his limb in heavy ropes and hardened where it touched the ground. The man with the bottle swung. Naruto's mochi arm caught the bottle mid-arc. The glass sank into the sticky surface and held. The man pulled. It didn't budge. He pulled harder, both hands now, feet bracing. The mochi arm didn't move a single inch. Then the other arm changed. But this one was different. This one turned black. Not shadow black, not ink black. A black that ate light, that hummed with density, that made the air around it vibrate with pressure. His fist clenched, and the black coating crackled like stressed iron. He drove it into the ground. The alley split. Not cracked. Split. A fissure ripped through the stone like a zipper being torn open, racing from Naruto's fist to the mouth of the alley in under a second. The walls on either side groaned and tilted. Roof tiles rained down. 2 of the men fell into the crack and scrambled out screaming. The rest stumbled, tripped, fled, crawling over each other like rats fleeing a sinking ship, their courage shattered as completely as the ground beneath them. In 8 seconds, the alley was empty. Naruto stood in the center of the destruction. His arms returned to normal. He reached up with steady hands and adjusted his scarf, pulling it tighter across the lower half of his face. His eyes swept the broken ground, the scattered bottles, the silence. "I will not let you look down on me." He said it to no one. He said it to everyone. He said it to the moon and the village and the sleeping Hokage and the 9-tailed beast sealed behind his navel. He turned and walked into the dark. That was the night Naruto Uzumaki stopped being a boy. Everything that came after, the legends, the fear, the impossible battles that would shake nations, all of it started in this garbage-strewn alley with a cracked earth and a vow. There are things you need to understand about Naruto Uzumaki before this story goes any further. He was not the dead last. He was never going to be the dead last. The version of Naruto who screamed for attention and painted the Hokage monument and begged the village to see him, that Naruto existed in some other timeline. Some softer world where the soul inside this body didn't carry the weight of a previous life, because Naruto Uzumaki was a reincarnation. Deep in the marrow of his being, woven into his chakra like thread through fabric, lived the soul of Charlotte Katakuri, the strongest sweet commander of the Big Mom Pirates, the man who stood undefeated for decades, whose back had never touched the ground. Katakuri, who saw the future. Katakuri, who turned his body into mochi. Katakuri, who coated his flesh in haki so dense it could shatter steel. Naruto didn't remember the previous life in clean, linear memories. It came in fragments, dreams of a woman with a crown too heavy for her head, a trident spinning through salt air, the taste of donuts, the weight of a scarf, the burning need to be the perfect older brother, to never show weakness, to never let the ones beneath your protection see you bleed. These fragments had crystallized into instinct. By the time Naruto was 6, he could stretch his body into mochi without understanding why. By 7, he could see 2 seconds into the future, a flickering, ghostly overlay of what was about to happen, playing across his vision like a translucent film. By 8, he could harden his limbs with that black, dense chakra that no one in Konoha had ever seen before. The Kyuubi's chakra complicated things. When it mixed with Katakuri's reincarnated soul, it mutated his body. His teeth came in wrong, elongated, sharp, lined in rows like a pelican eel's maw. A mouthful of fangs that made children scream and adults reach for weapons. He'd learned to hide it early. The scarf became his second skin. No one saw his mouth. No one saw him eat. No one saw the one crack in the armor of the most terrifying child Konoha had ever produced. And he was terrifying. Make no mistake, by the time Naruto Uzumaki walked into the academy at age 8, he was already stronger than most Chunin. He just had no interest in letting anyone know exactly how strong, not because he was humble, because he didn't need to prove anything to insects. The academy was a formality. Naruto sat in the back row, scarf pulled high, arms folded inside his sleeves. He was the tallest student by a full head, broader than some of the instructors. He filled the chair like a boulder dropped into a classroom of pebbles. He spoke rarely and only when directly addressed. Iruka Umino, the first day, tried to coax him into introducing himself. "Naruto, would you like to tell the class about yourself?" Blue eyes above crimson fabric, a pause that stretched 3 seconds too long. "No." Iruka swallowed and moved on. The tests were a joke. Written exams, Naruto finished in half the allotted time, every answer, because Future Sight told him which questions Iruka was going to emphasize and which traps the test was designed to set. He didn't cheat. He didn't need to. He simply knew. Taijutsu evaluations, nobody fought him twice. The first week, Kiba Inuzuka, who had more bravado than brains, challenged him in the sparring ring. "Come on, big guy. You just gonna stand there?" Naruto stood there. Hands in his sleeves, Kiba charged with a spinning kick. Naruto tilted his head 2 inches to the left. The kick sailed past his ear. He brought one open palm up and pressed it against Kiba's chest. Not a strike, a press. And Kiba flew backwards 6 feet, hit the mat, and slid another 3. The entire class stared. Naruto walked back to his seat. "I warned you," he said, and that was a lie because he had not warned anyone of anything. He just felt it sounded appropriate. Shikamaru Nara, who noticed everything and commented on almost nothing, leaned back in his chair and muttered, "Troublesome." Sasuke Uchiha, the other prodigy of the class, watched from across the room. His jaw was tight. His eyes were narrower than usual. He'd spent his entire academy career being the best, being the name on every teacher's lips, being the standard everyone else was measured against. And now there was a mountain sitting in the back row that made the standard feel meaningless. Sasuke never challenged Naruto directly, not because he was afraid, because somewhere deep in the Uchiha survival instinct, the same instinct that told prey animals not to stare at apex predators, Sasuke understood that the gap was not one he could close with a sparring match. He hated that understanding. He fed it gasoline every day. The weeks turned into months. Naruto's reputation had to be solidified into something that wasn't quite respect and wasn't quite fear. It was closer to the feeling you get when you realize the mountain you've been living beside is actually a dormant volcano. You don't run. You don't panic. You just develop a quiet, Constant awareness that something vast and dangerous is sharing your zip code. Teachers stopped calling on him, not because they'd given up, but because his answers were always correct and delivered in a tone that made them feel like students. Mizuki, the silver-haired instructor with secrets of his own, once tried to fail Naruto on a weapons accuracy test by rigging the targets. Naruto threw 6 kunai. All 6 hit bullseye on targets that hadn't been placed yet, because future sight showed him where Mizuki was going to move the posts 3 seconds before he did it. Mizuki stood in the training field, holding a target post that had a kunai embedded dead center, staring at the spot where the target had been 1 second before he placed it there. That's not possible. Naruto was already walking away. Iruka, to his credit, saw something beyond the intimidation. He saw a boy who ate alone, who never raised his hand for group activities, who flinched. Once, barely, a twitch so small only someone watching for it would catch it, when another student accidentally pulled his scarf during a hallway collision. Iruka started leaving extra lunch portions on Naruto's desk. Naruto never acknowledged them verbally, but the portions were always eaten. And one morning, Iruka found a single stick of perfectly sculpted mochi on his own desk, shaped like a dolphin. He kept it for years. But the bond that defined Naruto's academy days, the one that cracked the fortress open just enough to let light in, started with Dango. 3 in the afternoon. Naruto had disappeared from the academy grounds, as he did every day at exactly this time, with a punctuality that bordered on religious devotion. He'd found a spot on the roof of a condemned building near the edge of the commercial district. The roof was accessible only by scaling a wall that had no handholds, which meant Naruto had to stretch his mochi arm up 3 stories and pull himself up, a move that would have given any witness a heart attack. On the roof, he'd arranged his ritual, a small platform of hardened mochi sculpted into an elegant, shrine-like shape with raised edges and a flat center. On the platform, 6 donuts arranged in a circle and a stick of dango he'd purchased with coins he'd found in a fountain. He lowered his scarf. The teeth caught the afternoon sun, rows of pointed, elongated fangs that split his face into something monstrous. Something he hated. Something he would never let the world see. He bit into a donut. His eyes closed. For one moment, just one. The mountain wasn't a mountain. He was an 8-year-old boy eating a donut and feeling something close to happiness. Those looked good. His eyes snapped open. His hand was already moving to pull the scarf up when he locked onto the figure crouching on the edge of the roof, balanced on the railing like a gargoyle in a trench coat. Anko Mitarashi, Special Junin, Snake Summoner, the village's second most hated resident, right behind the kid she was currently staring at. She had wild purple hair, a mesh bodysuit that would have gotten anyone else written up by HR, and a grin that was equal parts manic and genuine. She'd seen his face, she'd seen the teeth. Naruto's body locked. His mochi arm was already forming behind his back, ready to, what? Attack a Junin? Run? He didn't run. He never ran. But the exposure, the vulnerability of being seen mid-bite with his real face out in the open, Anko dropped off the railing, walked over, sat down beside him on the mochi platform, and picked up a dango stick. Orochimaru gave me a curse mark, and the whole village treats me like I'm going to bite them. She bit into the dango, chewed, swallowed. Nice teeth, kid. She didn't flinch. She didn't stare. She just ate. Naruto stared at her for a long time. The mochi arm behind his back slowly dissolved. His scarf stayed down. He picked up his donut and took another bite. They ate in silence for 11 minutes. When Anko stood to leave, she dropped a paper bag on the mochi shrine. Inside, 3 red bean donuts and a note that said, "Same time tomorrow?" Naruto read the note. He folded it and placed it inside his jacket. He was there the next day. So was she. This became the routine. Every day at 3 o'clock, the merienda, though Naruto never called it that out loud, they met on that rooftop. Sometimes other rooftops if Anbu patrols shifted. Anko brought dango. Naruto brought donuts. They traded. They ate. Sometimes they talked. You know, Anko said one afternoon, mouth full of chocolate donut, "The Junin Lounge has been buzzing about you." Kakashi asked Iruka if you were some kind of censor type. Iruka told him you were some kind of nightmare. Iruka is perceptive. Anko barked a laugh. "You're 8. You shouldn't be able to say sentences like that. Age is irrelevant. See? That right there. You sound like a 40-year-old war veteran trapped in a kid's body. Naruto said nothing to that. He ate his donut, but something in his eyes shifted, a flicker of old, bone-deep wariness that Anko caught and chose not to comment on. She started sparring with him on weekends. This was against multiple regulations, given that she was a special Junin throwing kunai at an academy student. But Anko's relationship with regulations was best described as hostile. She wanted to see what the kid could do. What she saw made her stop sleeping well. The first time she threw a snake summon at him, a fast constrictor meant to bind and test his reflexes, Naruto turned his entire torso into mochi. The snake bit into his chest and sank into a sticky mass that held it like amber. Naruto looked down at the thrashing serpent lodged in his body, then up at Anko, with the flattest expression she'd ever seen on a human face. That tickled. Anko stared. Then she started laughing so hard she had to sit down. "Kid," she wheezed, "you are the scariest thing in this village, and I'm including the giant fox." They grew closer, not in the way the village understood relationships, not through declarations or formal bonds, through presence, through bags of donuts thrown without comment and caught without looking, through Anko arriving at his condemned building rooftop with a black eye from an Anbu training exercise and Naruto silently handing her an ice pack he'd made from chilled mochi. Through the understanding that two people rejected by the same village had found each other, and that was enough. Anko was the only person who ever saw Naruto smile. A real smile. Not the cold, measured non-expression he wore like a second scarf, but a genuine, slightly terrifying flash of pointed teeth that made her think of a shark finding something funny. "You should smile more," she told him once. "It frightens people." "Good. People should be frightened." He almost laughed. Almost. The corners of his eyes crinkled. Anko counted it as a win. The academy graduation exam arrived like a formality, arriving at its own funeral. Everyone knew Naruto would pass. The question was never if, but how badly he would embarrass the grading curve. The written portion, perfect score. The weapons accuracy test, perfect score, with 3 kunai landing in patterns that spelled something in a language nobody recognized. The taijutsu evaluation. His opponent, a civilian-born student named Takeshi, walked into the ring, looked up at the towering figure with the red scarf, and raised his hand. "I forfeit," Iruka sighed. "Naruto, you have to actually fight someone for me to grade you." He made the correct decision. Be that as it may, Sasuke stood up from the sidelines. "I'll fight him." The entire courtyard went still. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for and dreading in equal measure. The last Uchiha versus the scarf-wearing monster. 2 prodigies. 1 ring. Sasuke walked to the center of the sparring circle. His fists were clenched. His Sharingan had not yet awakened, but the fire that would one day fuel those red eyes was already burning behind black irises. "I want to know where I stand," Sasuke said. An honest, raw statement from a boy who measured his entire existence against the strongest opponent available. Naruto studied him. Future sight flickered. Ghostly images of Sasuke's next 3 moves layered over reality like transparent film. "You will open with a feint to the left, then a spinning heel kick aimed at my ribs. When I block, you will follow with a fireball." Sasuke's eye twitched. "You can't know that. Begin." Sasuke lunged left, feinted, and threw the spinning heel kick at Naruto's ribs. Naruto blocked with an open palm. Sasuke, mid-spin, sucked in air and blew. "Fire style, fireball jutsu!" The flames roared across the ring. The students scrambled backward. Iruka started to intervene. The fire hit Naruto's torso and punched through a hole of mochi, a clean gap right through his midsection where his body had simply opened up and let the fire pass through empty space. The flames scorched the training post behind him. Naruto stood untouched, the hole in his torso slowly filling back in with dense, clay-colored mochi that hardened into flesh. Sasuke stared at the spot where a fireball had passed through a human being like he was made of smoke. Naruto moved. 1 step forward. His right hand came up, open-palmed, and pressed against Sasuke's forehead. A gentle push. Sasuke stumbled back 3 steps, caught himself, and stared up at the towering figure above him. "You are talented," Naruto said. "You are also predictable. Work harder." He turned and walked out of the ring. Sasuke stood alone, fists trembling. Jaw locked so tight the muscles in his neck stood out like cables. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. He burned, quietly and completely, like a building with the fire trapped inside. Iruka marked Naruto's score. He used 3 exclamation points on the grading sheet, which was unprofessional but felt appropriate. Naruto graduated as Rookie of the Year. Not because he wanted it, because the idea of anyone else holding that title while he was in the room was absurd. And everyone, students, teachers, the Hokage himself watching through his crystal ball, knew it. The day team assignments were announced, Iruka read the list with the energy of someone defusing a bomb. Team 7, Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, Junin Sensei, Kakashi Hatake. Sakura pumped her fist. She was on Sasuke's team. Sasuke's jaw tightened. He was on Naruto's team. Naruto's expression didn't change because his expression never changed. He was a scarf and 2 eyes and an air of inevitability. But internally, somewhere deep in the reincarnated instincts of a man who had once commanded a fleet of siblings, something clicked. Teammates. Younger. Weaker. Under his wing family. He would never say it out loud. But the way he looked at Sasuke and Sakura shifted, imperceptibly, invisibly, but fundamentally. They were his now. And Naruto Uzumaki did not let bad things happen to what was his. Kakashi Hatake was late. This was expected. The man was legendary for 3 things. The Sharingan in his left eye, his track record of failing every Genin team assigned to him, and his absolute inability to arrive anywhere on time. 2 hours past the scheduled meeting, Naruto sat on a training post in Training Ground 7, legs crossed, eyes closed, arms tucked into his sleeves, meditating or sleeping. It was hard to tell. Sasuke leaned against a tree, arms folded, radiating impatience like a space heater. Sakura sat on the ground, nervously glancing between the 2 boys and wondering what she'd done in a previous life to end up sandwiched between a brooding Avenger and a human earthquake. Kakashi appeared in a swirl of leaves at 10:47 a.m. Yo, sorry, a black cat crossed my path, so I had to. You stopped at the memorial stone for 43 minutes, Naruto said, eyes still closed. Then you bought a copy of Icha Icha from the bookstore on 3rd Street. The cashier was new and took longer than expected. Kakashi's visible eye went wide. The lazy slouch in his posture straightened by 2 degrees, which for Kakashi was the equivalent of standing at full attention. That's quite the guess. It was not a guess. Kakashi studied the massive scarf-wearing Genin on the training post. He'd read the file. Exceptional academy scores. Taijutsu abilities that left instructors filing confused reports. An unknown Kekkei Genkai involving some kind of body-morphing substance. The 3rd Hokage had personally annotated the file with the note, handled with extreme care. Potential exceeds current classification. Kakashi had assumed that was old man hyperbole. Looking at the boy now, feeling the sheer weight of his presence. Kakashi revised that assumption downward. Right, Kakashi said, pulling out 2 bells. Standard test. You have until noon to take these bells from me. Come at me with intent to kill, or you won't stand a chance. He tied the bells to his belt loop. He eye-smiled. Begin. Sasuke vanished into the tree line. Sakura ducked behind a bush. Standard opening moves. Hide, assess, plan. Naruto opened his eyes and remained sitting on the training post. You are not going to hide? Kakashi asked. You would find me regardless. Your nose alone could track me through a rainstorm. Flattering and true. Kakashi's hand drifted toward the kunai pouch on his thigh. So what's your plan? I do not need a plan. I need 2 seconds. Kakashi felt the hair on his neck stand up. Junin instinct, the kind earned through 1,000 missions and twice as many near-death experiences, screamed at him that the kid on the training post was not bluffing. He moved first. Hand signs blurred. Earth style, headhunter jutsu. Kakashi sank into the ground like water into sand, tunneling beneath the surface with practiced speed, aiming to grab Naruto's ankles and drag him under. Classic, reliable, had worked on every Genin team he'd ever tested. Naruto spoke to the empty ground beneath his feet before Kakashi's hands had even reached the surface. You are going to grab my ankles and pull me under. Beneath the earth, Kakashi's blood froze. Naruto's right foot turned black. Dense, crackling, light-eating black. Armament haki channeled through chakra until his foot was harder than forged steel. He raised it. Block mochi. He stomped. The ground didn't just break, it caved. A 10-foot radius of earth collapsed inward like a sinkhole, exposing the tunnel system Kakashi had been navigating. Dirt and rock exploded upward. Kakashi burst from the destruction, leaping backward, flak jacket dusted with debris, visible eye wide. He landed in a crouch. His headband was already sliding upward, revealing the Sharingan. The three Tomoe Sharingan spun to life, red and black and hungry for information. It locked onto Naruto and began reading. His stance, his chakra flow, his muscle tension, the micro movements that telegraphed the next attack. Naruto extended his right arm. It lengthened, stretched, reshaped. From his open palm, mochi poured and hardened into a weapon. A trident, 8 feet long, dense as stone, 3 prongs gleaming with the sheen of polished clay. He spun it once, planted the butt against the ground, and stood with it at his side. Kakashi stared at the trident, then at the boy holding it, then at the Sharingan's readout, which was feeding him information he didn't fully understand. The boy's chakra wasn't flowing through Tenketsu points like normal. It was flowing through his entire body simultaneously, like blood. Mogura, Naruto said, and thrust the trident forward. The strike crossed 20 feet of distance in a blink. Kakashi's Sharingan saw it coming, and his body reacted. Twist, lean, dodge by inches. The trident's center prong grazed his flak jacket and tore a clean line through the fabric. Kakashi substituted with a log. The log exploded into mochi the moment the trident touched it. Sticky, heavy, and completely encasing the wooden replacement, Kakashi appeared behind Naruto, kunai in hand, aimed at the back of the neck. Naruto's head tilted, like he was listening to music only he could hear. Your left hand will faint low. The real strike comes from the right. Kakashi's left hand fainted low. His right drove the kunai toward Naruto's shoulder. Naruto's shoulder opened. A hole of mochi appeared exactly where the kunai was aimed, and the blade passed through empty space. In the same motion, Naruto's left arm, already black with haki, swung backward in a massive elbow strike. It caught Kakashi in the ribs. The copy ninja flew. He actually flew, feet leaving the ground, body sailing through the air for 15 feet before he hit a tree trunk, cracked the bark, and dropped to a knee. He coughed. His ribs screamed. That single strike had more force behind it than most Junin-level techniques. Kakashi looked up. His Sharingan was spinning wildly, trying to analyze, trying to predict, trying to do the thing it had always done. Copy, read, anticipate. Naruto was already walking toward him, trident in hand. Your Sharingan sees the present and copies the past, Naruto said. It does not see the future. That is the difference between us. The words hung in the morning air like a verdict. Kakashi stood. He pulled his headband all the way up, both eyes exposed, and for the first time in the test, he dropped into a genuine combat stance. This was no longer an exam. This was a Junin taking a genin seriously, and every animal in a half-mile radius went quiet because nature itself could feel the shift. Mochi-tsuki. Naruto slammed his trident into the ground. Mochi erupted from the point of impact in every direction. Pillars, walls, tendrils, filling the training ground with a maze of dense, sticky material that reshaped the battlefield in seconds. Trees were encased. The ground was coated. The air smelled sweet. Kakashi leapt upward, trying to get above the mochi, but a tendril whipped from a pillar and caught his ankle. He slashed it with a kunai. It stuck. He pulled. The mochi stretched but held. Another tendril caught his wrist. In the branches above, Sasuke watched with his mouth open. The great Kakashi Hatake, the copy ninja, the man who copied 1,000 jutsu, was stuck in what appeared to be a giant dessert. Naruto walked through the mochi like it was water, parting around his legs as he moved. He reached up and plucked both bells from the tendril that had already wrapped around Kakashi's belt loop. He held them up, 2 bells, both in hand. Less than 4 minutes from the start of the test, Kakashi, hanging from mochi tendrils like a fly in amber, stared at the bells, then at the boy. Well, Kakashi said, because he had to say something. That's a first! Get down here! Naruto called out, and it took Sasuke and Sakura a moment to realize he was talking to them. They dropped from hiding. Sakura's eyes were saucers. Sasuke's face was carved from stone, but his hands were shaking. Naruto tossed one bell to Sasuke. It bounced off his chest and he caught it reflexively. He tossed the other to Sakura. She fumbled it, caught it on the second grab, and looked at him like he just handed her a live explosive. A true older brother always provides for his siblings. He turned and walked toward the training ground's exit. Kakashi released himself from the dissolving mochi. Naruto had let it soften and landed on the ground. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the retreating figure. Sakura looked at Kakashi. "Sensei, did we pass?" Kakashi pulled his headband back down over the Sharingan. His ribs throbbed. His pride throbbed worse. "Yeah," he said quietly. "You pass." He didn't tell them that in 15 years of testing Genin teams, no one had ever taken both bells from him. He didn't tell them that the strike to his ribs had cracked 2 of them. He didn't tell them that for a brief electric moment during the fight, his Sharingan had tried to copy the mochi technique and returned nothing, like trying to photograph the wind. What he told them later in his Junin report to the Hokage was this: "The Uzumaki boy is beyond anything I was prepared for. He fights like a man who has already lived a war. Recommend immediate reclassification." The third Hokage read the report, puffed his pipe, and wrote a single word in the margins: "Denied." Because he was afraid of what would happen if the wrong people learned what Naruto could do. Team 7's first weeks were a study in contrasts. Sasuke trained like a man possessed. Every morning before dawn, every evening after missions, pushing his body to limits and then past them. He never said why, but everyone knew. The mountain was there, and he intended to climb it or die on the slope. Sakura, to her credit, recognized early that she was the weakest link and started compensating. She studied medical texts, chakra theory, trap mechanics. She would never match Naruto or Sasuke in raw power, but she could be the brain that kept the team alive. Naruto noticed this. He never complimented her directly. That wasn't how he operated, but he began positioning himself in formations that gave her clear sightlines and safe angles. Protection without condescension. Kakashi taught them tree walking in 3 hours instead of 3 days, because Naruto finished it in 4 minutes and then sat down to eat a donut while Sasuke and Sakura struggled. Kakashi watched Naruto produce the donut from seemingly nowhere, his sleeve, a mochi pocket, some kind of pastry dimension, and decided not to ask. D-rank missions were completed with brutal efficiency. Catch the cat? Naruto predicted where Tora would run and had a mochi net waiting. Weed the garden? Mochi tendrils pulled every weed in the field simultaneously. Paint the fence? He was done before Kakashi finished explaining the job. "You know," Kakashi said one afternoon, leaning against a fence post while Naruto single-handedly completed a mission meant for 3. "Most Genin teams struggle with these. They complain, they argue, it builds teamwork. Struggling is for people who cannot see the answer." That's either the most arrogant or the most honest thing I've ever heard a 12-year-old say. Both. Kakashi eye smiled. He was beginning to like this kid, in the way you like a natural disaster that happens to be on your side. The mission to the Land of Waves began the way all pivotal missions begin. With a lie. Tazuna the bridge builder walked into the Hokage's office, smelling like cheap sake and expensive desperation. He needed protection. He could only afford a C rank. He swore, hand to heart, ancestors as witnesses, that the biggest threat on the road was maybe a bandit or 2. Naruto stood in the corner of the office during the briefing, arms in his sleeves, scarf high. His future sight triggered the moment Tazuna opened his mouth. He saw it. The flicker. The ghost image of what was coming. 2 figures crouched in a puddle on a dirt road, chains between them, poison on their claws. "He is lying," Naruto said. The room went quiet. Tazuna went pale. The Hokage's pipe paused halfway to his mouth. "The danger is higher than C rank," Naruto continued. "There are shinobi waiting for us on the road. At least 2, possibly more." Tazuna looked like a man watching his last hope circle the drain. The third Hokage studied Naruto for a long moment, then looked at Kakashi. "Your call." Kakashi shrugged. "We'll take it." Naruto nodded once. He'd already known that would be the answer. The road to Wave was quiet for the first half day. Trees. Dirt. The kind of silence that exists in the space between birdsong. Naruto walked at the rear of the formation, which Kakashi had tried to argue against. The strongest should lead or guard the client. But Naruto had simply said, "I can see threats from any position." And that was the end of that discussion. Sakura walked beside Tazuna, making small talk about bridges and architecture with a genuine curiosity that the old man found disarming. Sasuke walked point, kunai holstered but reachable, eyes scanning. Naruto's eyes were half closed. Future sight hummed at the edges of his perception like a radio tuned to a frequency only he could hear. Kakashi. The Junin glanced back. There is a puddle ahead, 20 meters. It has not rained in 3 weeks. Kakashi's eye widened fractionally. He'd noticed the puddle too, but hearing a Genin call it out with that kind of certainty was something. The demon brothers struck. They erupted from the puddle. Gozu and Meizu, missing 9 from the hidden mist, chains rattling between them like the world's most aggressive jump rope. They moved fast, flanking Kakashi, wrapping the chain around him in a heartbeat. One down! Meizu snarled. The chain tightened. Kakashi exploded into chunks of wood. Substitution. The brothers pivoted. They charged Tazuna. Sakura jumped in front of the bridge builder, kunai out, hands trembling but steady enough. Sasuke moved to intercept, a fireball already building in his chest. Naruto was already there. He hadn't run. He hadn't flickered. One moment, he was at the rear. The next, he stood between the demon brothers and his team, arms at his sides, scarf rippling in the displacement. Gozu swung his clawed gauntlet at Naruto's neck. The claw hit Mochi. Naruto's neck opened, a clean hole through which the claw passed without touching flesh, and closed again around Gozu's wrist like a bear trap. The missing 9 screamed. He pulled. His hand didn't move. Meizu swung the chain. Naruto's left arm turned black. Armament Haki. He caught the chain in his fist, wrapped it once around his wrist and yanked. Meizu flew toward him like a fish on a line. Naruto met him with a headbutt. The crack echoed through the forest. Meizu crumpled like paper, out cold before he hit the ground. Gozu, still trapped in the mochi, stared at his unconscious brother, then up at the figure holding him. What? What are you? Naruto's free hand pressed against Gozu's face, just enough to let the missing nin feel the density of the palm, the weight, the absolute, crushing certainty that the next move would be the last. Sleep, he squeezed. Gozu's eyes rolled back and he folded. 3 seconds, 2 missing 9. Down. Kakashi dropped from a tree, arms folded. He'd been watching, testing, seeing how the team would react without him. What he'd seen made his stomach do something complicated. Nice work, he said, and the understatement was so severe it bordered on sarcasm. Sakura stared at the 2 unconscious bodies. Naruto, you didn't even use hand signs. I do not need hand signs. Sasuke said nothing. His fists were clenched so tight that his nails drew blood from his palms. Tazuna fell to his knees. What? What is that, kid? Kakashi scratched the back of his head. That's a great question. The truth came out over the next hour. Tazuna confessed. Gato, the shipping magnate turned crime lord, was bleeding Wave Country dry. The bridge was the country's lifeline. Gato had hired shinobi to stop it, probably more than just the demon brothers. Zabuza Momochi, Kakashi said quietly, and the name fell like a stone into still water. Demon of the Hidden Mist, A-rank missing nin, former member of the 7 Ninja Swordsmen. If Gato is hiring that caliber, we continue, Naruto said. Kakashi looked at him. This is well above. We continue. It wasn't a request. It was the voice of someone who had weighed the odds, seen the future, and decided that the future was acceptable. Kakashi, against every protocol and probably a few laws, agreed. They crossed into Wave Country by boat, through fog so thick it felt like breathing cotton. Tazuna's home was a modest thing perched on the edge of poverty, a family running on fumes and hope. His daughter Tsunami greeted them with tea and exhausted gratitude. His grandson Inari greeted them with contempt. You're going to die, Inari said at dinner, staring at the 3 genin with the dead eyes of a child who'd already lost everything worth keeping. Gato kills everyone who stands up to him. Heroes don't exist. Sakura flinched. Sasuke grunted. Kakashi sighed. Naruto set down his teacup. Heroes do not exist, he agreed. Men who refuse to lose do. Inari's lip quivered. He ran from the table. Tsunami apologized. Naruto watched the empty doorway for a moment, then returned to his tea. That night, on the roof of Tazuna's house, Naruto built his mochi shrine. 3 a.m., because the Merienda waited for no mission. He arranged donuts he'd sealed in a storage scroll. The boy planned ahead and lowered his scarf in the sea air. Kakashi found him. The Junin appeared on the roof's edge, hands in pockets, and stopped. He saw the shrine. He saw the donuts. He saw the face, the teeth, the mutation, the thing hidden behind the scarf. And with the instinct of a man who had read too many broken people and been one himself, he didn't stare. He sat down 5 feet away, pulled out his book. They stayed like that for 20 minutes. No words, no acknowledgement, just two people existing in the same silence. When Kakashi left, he said only, "Zabuza will come tomorrow, at the bridge." "I know." Kakashi paused. "Of course you do." The mist rolled in at dawn. Tazuna's bridge was half finished, a skeleton of steel and concrete stretching out over gray water, disappearing into fog that swallowed everything past 30 feet. The construction crew had fled. The air tasted like iron and salt. Kakashi stood at point, sharing and uncovered. His body language had changed overnight, looser, ready, the relaxed coil of a predator expecting contact. Sasuke and Sakura flanked Tazuna in a protective formation they drilled the night before. Naruto stood apart from the group, 10 feet ahead, arms in his sleeves, scarf catching the wet breeze. The mist thickened. This was chakra-laced, a jutsu, a signature, a calling card as distinct as a fingerprint. "Hidden mist jutsu," Kakashi murmured. Naruto exhaled. "Mist cannot hide your future." A voice boomed from everywhere and nowhere, amplified by the fog until it seemed to come from the water itself. "Kakashi of the Sharingan, I've heard stories." The voice paused, shifted, found the shape of the massive kid standing at the front. "And what's this? Your Genin team brought me a big one." Zabuza Momochi materialized on the bridge railing. He stood 6'7", shirtless, bandaged from the nose down, carrying the executioner's blade across his back like it weighed nothing, which for him it didn't. The blade was 6 feet of sharpened steel, wide as a door, designed for one purpose, to take heads. His killing intent washed over the bridge. Sakura gasped, her knees buckled. Tazuna grabbed a steel beam for support. Even Sasuke swayed. The pressure was physical, a weight on the chest, a tightness in the lungs. Naruto didn't move. Zabuza's eyes narrowed above his bandages. The kid should be on the ground. Every genin he'd ever targeted with killing intent had frozen, vomited, or passed out. This one stood like a statue, scarf rippling, eyes half-lidded. "Interesting," Zabuza said. He drew the executioner's blade. The steel sang. "Let's see if you bleed." He moved. For a man his size, Zabuza was terrifyingly fast. The executioner's blade came in horizontal, aimed at Naruto's midsection with enough force to bisect a tree. Naruto's torso opened, a perfect hole, center mass, through which 6 feet of sharpened steel passed like thread through a needle. Mochi stretched and parted, maintaining his shape above and below the gap, while the blade occupied the space where his stomach had been. Zabuza's swing completed. He stared at the hole in the kid's body. He stared at the mochi closing back in, sealing shut like water filling a gap. He stared at the blue eyes above the scarf, which hadn't blinked. What the hell? Naruto's arm erupted. It expanded, doubled, tripled in size, knocked the fist swelling into a boulder of mochi that hardened mid-flight, coating itself in armament haki until it was a wrecking ball of black, crackling density. Zangiri mochi! The fist connected with Zabuza's ribs. The sound was catastrophic. Zabuza's feet left the bridge. His body sailed backward through the mist, smashing through one steel support beam, 2, 3, each one buckling and snapping around his frame. Before he hit the fourth and stopped. He hung there for a moment, embedded in bent steel, blood spraying from his mouth. The executioner's blade clattering to the bridge surface 10 feet away. On the bridge, Kakashi's Sharingan spun. His brain ran calculations. The force of that punch. He'd seen A-rank techniques with less destructive power. This was a genin. This was his genin. Zabuza peeled himself from the support beam. He dropped to the bridge, one knee, gasping. 3 ribs broken, maybe 4. Internal bleeding. He could taste it. He looked up at the figure walking toward him through the mist with the steady, unhurried pace of something inevitable. Who are you? Naruto Uzumaki. That wasn't a normal jutsu. That wasn't even. You are thinking about running. Your partner is in the trees to the north, preparing senbon. You will call for a retreat in 4 seconds. Zabuza's blood went cold. His eyes flicked to the tree line where Haku, masked, hidden, supposedly invisible, crouched. The kid had called it. Every detail. Like reading a script, a senbon whistled from the trees and struck Zabuza in the neck. He collapsed. Haku appeared in a swirl of ice, Anbu mask, long hair, gentle hands lifting the body. I must save my master. Forgive me. Haku vanished with Zabuza. The mist dissolved. Sunlight hit the bridge like a curtain rising. Kakashi sagged. The tension drained from his body in a visible wave. Sakura was shaking. What? What just happened? Naruto happened. Sasuke said, and there was something in his voice, something deeper and more dangerous. The sound of a wound being ripped open. Naruto stood at the edge of the bridge, staring into the fog where Haku had vanished. His future sight showed him the next encounter. The ice, the mirrors, the boy who would die for his master. "He will come back," Naruto said. "How do you know?" Sakura asked. "Because he has to." The week of recovery was a strange interlude. Zabuza would heal, Haku would prepare. The final confrontation was coming, and everyone felt it like a change in barometric pressure. Kakashi trained Sasuke in the basics of the Chidori, or tried to. Sasuke's chakra reserves weren't there yet, but the concept was planted, a seed that would bloom into lightning. Sakura studied medical jutsu from scrolls Kakashi lent her, her focus sharpened by the brush with death on the bridge. Naruto trained alone. He went deep into the forest, far from the house, and practiced. The mochi flowed from his body in waves, walls, pillars, weapons, tendrils. He shaped it, hardened it, tested its limits against trees and boulders. His armament haki, the black hardened chakra, crept further with each session. Full arm, full leg. He was reaching for the point where he could coat his entire body. One morning, in the gray pre-dawn light, he found Haku in a meadow. The boy was beautiful, long dark hair, gentle face, collecting herbs gently, who cared about living things. He wore a pink kimono and smiled like the world hadn't already decided to chew him up. They recognized each other instantly. Through the kind of mutual awareness that exists between apex predators meeting at a watering hole. "You are strong," Haku said, arranging herbs in a basket. "What makes you strong?" "I protect what is mine." "Then we are the same." Naruto studied the boy. Future sight showed him fragments, ice, mirrors, a needle aimed at a heart. "We are not the same," Naruto said. "You are prepared to die for your precious person. I am prepared to make the world die for mine." Haku's smile faltered, just barely. A crack in porcelain. Naruto stood and walked away. He paused at the meadow's edge. "Your devotion is admirable, but it will not save you." The final battle at the bridge was the kind of day that changed histories. Zabuza came with Haku. Gado's thugs lurked in the wings, a contingency no one had asked for. The mist returned, thicker, heavier, charged with Zabuza's fury and the knowledge that this would end today. Zabuza engaged Kakashi. This fight was their own, two Junin-level killers going at each other with violence that turned the bridge into a war zone. Water jutsu exploded. Steel clashed. The Sharingan and the silent killing technique played a lethal game of chess. Haku confronted Naruto. "I will protect Zabuza-sama," Haku said, sliding the Anbu mask down. His eyes were sad. "Even if it costs my life." "It will." Haku's hands blurred. Secret jutsu, crystal ice mirrors. Ice exploded across the bridge. Mirrors formed in a dome, translucent, reflective, cold enough to frost the air. Haku stepped into one mirror and became reflections. He was everywhere, in every surface, moving between them at speeds that turned him into a blur of senbon and killing intent. Sasuke was already inside the dome. He'd charged in, hot-headed, proud, refusing to be protected. And now he stood in the center of the ice prison, like Sharingan newly awakened but unable to track Haku's speed. Senbon peppered his arms, his legs. He was being taken apart one needle at a time. Naruto walked into the dome. Haku threw a wave of senbon. 20 needles, aimed at vital points, moving at speeds that would have killed a Chunin. Naruto's eyes glowed. Future sight activated at full power. The world slowed. Each senbon left a ghostly trail, a transparent echo of where it would be in 1 second, 2 seconds, 3. The future mapped itself across his vision like a battle plan drawn in light. He moved. His body flowed, mochi and muscle working in concert. He bent at angles that shouldn't be possible, stretching, shifting, opening holes in his torso and limbs that senbon sailed through without contact. It was dancing. It was art. It was a man who could see the future turning combat into choreography. 0 hits. Haku stared from inside the mirror. 20 senbon thrown at near invisible speed, and every single one had missed, because the boy had moved before the needles were thrown. "I see it," Naruto said. "You will aim for his neck next." He was looking at Sasuke. Haku's next target. Haku launched from the mirror. Senbon aimed at Sasuke's exposed neck. Kill shot. Naruto's arm stretched. 20 feet of mochi, extending from his shoulder to the center of the dome, black with haki at the hand. He caught Haku by the throat mid-flight. The ice user's momentum died instantly, like running into a wall. Naruto's grip held Haku suspended in the air. Then he drove Haku downward. The ice user hit the bridge surface and kept going, through the concrete, through the steel, into the water below. The impact sent shockwaves that cracked every mirror in the dome simultaneously. They didn't shatter, they cracked, held for one beautiful moment like stained glass in an earthquake, then collapsed inward, raining diamond-bright shards across the bridge. Sasuke dropped to his knees, punctured and bleeding, but alive. He looked at the space where 20 ice mirrors had existed 3 seconds ago. "How?" he breathed. Naruto retracted his arm. He looked down at the hole in the bridge where Haku had been driven through. A moment later, the ice user pulled himself back up, shattered and broken, blood streaming from his mouth. His mask cracked in half. Haku knelt on the bridge. He could barely stand. His mirrors were gone. His speed was irrelevant against someone who saw the future. He had nothing left. "Your devotion is admirable," Naruto said, the same words from the meadow. "But you cannot defeat me." Haku smiled. That same sad, beautiful smile. "Then let me die for the one I love." He moved, but toward the sound of Kakashi's Raikiri charging behind them. Kakashi's hand, wreathed in lightning, was aimed at Zabuza's heart. Haku threw himself between them. Naruto's future sight showed him the outcome before Haku took the first step. He moved. Mochi erupted from the bridge, a wall, thick and dense, that slammed into place between Kakashi's Raikiri and Haku's body. The lightning fist hit the mochi wall and discharged electricity arcing through the dense substance, burning it, blackening it, but not breaking through. Kakashi's arm stopped. Haku stopped. Everyone stopped. Naruto stood between them, arm extended, the mochi wall still smoking from the lightning. "Enough!" Haku looked up at him with wide, wet eyes. "Why?" "Because dying for someone is easy. Living for them is harder. Choose the harder path." The words hit the bridge like a physical weight. Zabuza, who had been mid-swing behind Kakashi, froze. His bandages were soaked with blood. His body was failing. But his ears worked fine. He stared at the boy who had just saved Haku's life. The boy who had punched him through 3 support beams. The boy whose face he couldn't see. "Kid, who the hell are you?" Naruto turned. "A brother." The moment should have been the end. But Gato, because men like Gato never understand when to stop, arrived. He walked onto the bridge with 50 thugs. Short, fat, smug, leaning on a cane that probably cost more than Tazuna's house. He looked at the wounded shinobi on the bridge and smiled the way a man smiles when he's counting money. Well, the famous demon of the mist, beaten by a bunch of kids. "I was going to kill you anyway. You're too expensive. Boys, finish them all, and wreck the bridge while you're at it." 50 thugs charged, swords, clubs, crossbows. The courage of men who only fight when they outnumber their enemy 10 to 1. Naruto turned to face them. He raised one hand. Mochi erupted from every surface, the bridge, the water, the air itself. Pillars rose, walls formed. The entire bridge transformed into a gauntlet of sticky, dense, inescapable material. Thugs ran into mochi walls and stuck. They swung weapons that sank into mochi surfaces and held. They stepped on mochi floors that grabbed their feet like quicksand. In 8 seconds, 50 men were immobilized, stuck to the bridge like flies on paper, screaming, cursing, going nowhere. Gato stood alone at the end of the bridge, surrounded by his trapped army, staring at the boy who had just neutralized a small militia without moving his feet. What are you?" Naruto's arm stretched, 15 feet, his hand, open, wide, mochi-dense, pressed against Gato's face and lifted the crime lord off the ground. Gato's legs kicked in the air. His cane clattered to the bridge. "You will release your hold on Wave Country," Naruto said, his voice carrying across the water. "You will return every coin you have stolen. You will leave and never return." I'll pay you. I'll give you anything. I do not want your money. I want your absence." He released Gato. The crime lord hit the bridge, scrambled to his feet, and ran. He made it 11 steps before Zabuza's executioner's blade, thrown like a javelin with the last of the swordsman's strength, pinned his jacket to the bridge surface. Zabuza limped toward him. Broken ribs, blood loss, fury. "That one," Zabuza growled, "is mine." Naruto inclined his head. Permissions granted. What happened to Gato in the next 40 seconds was decisive and final. The bridge builder got his bridge. The country got its freedom. And the story got its ending. In the aftermath, as Kakashi sat against a support beam getting his wounds treated, and Sakura bandaged Sasuke's senbon punctures, and Zabuza lay unconscious but alive because Haku had begged for medical attention, and Naruto had provided mochi splints. In the middle of all that chaos, Inari arrived. The kid ran onto the bridge with tears streaming down his face and a crossbow he could barely lift. "I came to fight," he screamed. "I came to." He saw the battlefield, the mochi covering everything, the stuck thugs groaning, the blood, the broken bridge. The towering figure in the red scarf standing at the center like the eye of a hurricane. "You're too late," Sakura said gently. Inari looked at Naruto. Naruto looked back. "You came," Naruto said. "That is what matters." Inari cried harder. But it was a different kind of crying, the kind that washes things clean. They named the bridge after Naruto. He was against it. He told Tazuna it was unnecessary. Tazuna told him that heroes don't get to choose what the people call them. "I am not a hero." "Kid, you just saved my entire country. Shut up and take the compliment." The Great Naruto Bridge, it stood for decades. And everyone who crossed it wondered about the boy behind the name. The return to Konoha was quiet. Sasuke walked in silence, his newly awakened Sharingan deactivated, his mind churning. The gap between himself and Naruto hadn't just been exposed in Wave. It had been measured, cataloged, and tattooed onto his ego. He didn't speak for 3 days. Kakashi filed a mission report that was reclassified twice. Once to A rank, then to a classification level that Kakashi didn't have a name for. The Hokage read it. Then he read it again. Then he called Kakashi into his office, and they spoke for 2 hours behind sound suppression seals. Naruto went to his rooftop. He was late for the merienda. Anko was already there. 2 bags of donuts. A new flavor of dango, strawberry, which she knew he liked because she paid attention to things like that. He sat. She tossed a bag. He caught it without looking. "Heard you punched a swordsman through 3 steel beams." It was support beams. Even better, she bit into a dango stick. "Also heard you saved some ice kid's life and made a crime lord piss himself." The second part is an exaggeration. Is it though? He lowered his scarf, took a bite of donut, chewed, his eyes closed. "I missed this," he said. Anko watched him, the tension draining from his massive shoulders, the way his jaw unclenched around the donut, the small, nearly invisible ease that came over him when he was here, on this roof, with this person doing this stupid, sacred thing. "Welcome home, kid." He nodded. They ate in silence. Below them, the village moved. Above them, the sky was empty and blue and didn't care about any of it. 2 months passed. Missions completed, routines established. Naruto's reputation in Konoha shifted from that scary genin to that genin who might actually be a natural disaster in a scarf. Other genin teams heard the stories from Wave and reacted the way people always react to stories they don't fully believe, with skepticism, curiosity, and the quiet, irrational hope that they'd never have to find out firsthand. Then the Chunin exams were announced. Kakashi delivered the news with his usual nonchalance. "The exams are in 2 weeks. I've nominated all 3 of you. You can decline if you..." "We accept," Naruto said. Sasuke and Sakura looked at each other. Sakura opened her mouth to suggest maybe they discuss. "We accept," Sasuke echoed. His eyes were fixed on Naruto. "Well," Kakashi said, "that was easy." The first phase of the Chunin exams was a written test. Ibiki Morino, head of the Torture and Interrogation Division, proctored. The concept was simple, 10 questions, impossibly hard, designed to force cheating. The real test was whether you had the guts to cheat without getting caught. Naruto sat down. He didn't look at the questions, he looked at Ibiki. Future sight activated. The ghostly overlay showed Ibiki's next 3 moves, who he'd watch, when he'd speak, what the 10th question would be. Naruto picked up his pencil and wrote every answer. He wrote the answers because future sight showed him Ibiki's subtle eye movements toward the planted Chunin who had the correct responses, and from those micro expressions, he reverse engineered the answers. He finished in 4 minutes. Ibiki walked past his desk. He looked down at the paper. Every answer correct. Written in handwriting so steady it looked printed. He looked at the genin, blue eyes above a crimson scarf. Ibiki moved on. His eye twitched. The 10th question drama played out. Stand or leave. Bet your career or fold. Genin panicked. Teams fled. Naruto remained seated, arms in his sleeves. Sakura stayed because Naruto stayed. Sasuke stayed because Sasuke would rather die than quit in front of Naruto. Ibiki revealed the trick. Everyone who stayed passed. Congratulations, welcome to Phase 2. A window shattered. Anko Mitarashi exploded into the room via the window, trailing a banner that read Second Exam Proctor, the great and sexy Anko Mitarashi. She landed on Ibiki's desk, scattering papers, grinning like a woman who had just been handed a room full of prey. All right, maggots. Training Ground 44. The Forest of Death. If you survive. Her eyes found Naruto. He was already looking at her. A slight incline of his head. She grinned wider. Then she reached into her coat and lobbed something across the room. A bag of donuts arced through the air. Naruto's hand came out of his sleeve, caught it without looking, and disappeared back into the fabric. Every genin in the room watched this exchange. Kiba leaned over to Shino. Did she just throw him snacks? In the middle of an exam? Shino adjusted his glasses. It appears so. What the actual? Do not question it, Shino advised. Anko resumed her proctor persona. Forest of Death. 1 hour. Be there or be eliminated. She crashed back out the window. Dramatic exits were her specialty. The Forest of Death was exactly as advertised. 44 training grounds worth of oversized trees, man-eating wildlife. Teams entered with 2 scrolls, one heaven, one earth, and needed both to pass. The math was simple. Half of you have what the other half needs. Figure it out. Team 7 entered through Gate 12. Sasuke took point. Sakura guarded the scroll. Naruto walked behind them, hands in sleeves. Future Sight running on a constant low-level hum. They needed an earth scroll. They had a heaven scroll. There's a team from Rain 300 meters northeast, Naruto said, 10 minutes into the forest. They have an earth scroll. They will pass our position in 90 seconds. Sasuke looked at him. How do you? Intercept them at the clearing ahead. I will handle the rest. The Rain genin never saw it coming. They walked into the clearing, confident in their numbers, and found a wall of mochi blocking their path. They turned to run and found another wall behind them. They looked up and found a ceiling forming. In the mochi box, stripped of visibility, hearing nothing but their own panicked breathing, they surrendered the scroll in 45 seconds. Naruto released them without a scratch. They stumbled out of the dissolving mochi and ran. Was that necessary? Sakura asked, holding their new earth scroll. We have both scrolls. We can proceed to the tower. Yeah, but it's only been 20 minutes. Then we will arrive early. They arrived at the central tower in 28 minutes. That's a record that would stand for the duration of the exams and several exams after. The proctors at the tower looked at their timestamps, looked at each other, and one of them quietly went to confirm the clocks were working. But getting to the tower early meant waiting, and waiting meant time. And time meant 3 p.m. hit like a divine alarm clock. Naruto disappeared. Sasuke and Sakura had been resting in the tower's provided quarters. Sasuke was sharpening kunai. Sakura was reviewing her medical notes. One moment Naruto was sitting in the corner. The next, the corner was empty. Where did he? Sakura started. Don't, Sasuke said, not looking up from his kunai. Just don't. Outside the tower, behind a massive tree whose roots created a natural alcove invisible from any angle, Naruto built his merienda. The Mochi shrine was elaborate today. The forest had good energy, and his chakra was humming. He sculpted the platform into a multi-tiered affair. Donuts on the top level, dango on the second, and a small cup of tea on the bottom tier. Brewed from leaves he'd collected on the walk-in and heated with a chakra-warmed mochi coil, he lowered his scarf. The teeth caught the filtered forest light. He picked up a donut, red bean, his favorite, and bit into it. His eyes closed. Peace. Pure, absolute, sacred peace. The killing intent hit him like a truck. His eyes opened. Orochimaru of the Sannin stood 15 feet away. The man was wearing the skin of a grass genin, literally, because that was how Orochimaru operated. But the disguise was irrelevant. Future Sight didn't care what face you wore. It read the soul. And the soul standing in front of Naruto was old and cold and smelled like snake venom and 1,000 regrets. Orochimaru's snake-slit eyes were not fixed on Naruto's body or his power. They were fixed on his face. The teeth, the exposed mouth, the mutation. Orochimaru had seen it. Naruto's eyes went completely flat. The temperature on the bridge dropped. Not because of jutsu, because of intent. Naruto's killing intent. Something he had never deployed at full force in his life poured out of his body like a physical substance. It was not rage. It was not fear. It was the focused, absolute pressure of a man who had just had his most sacred vulnerability exposed, and the universe was about to pay for it. You saw my face. Orochimaru, to his credit, was one of the 3 strongest shinobi in recorded history. He had faced armies. He had killed Kage. He had experimented on human bodies with the detachment of someone dissecting a frog. He did not have a clever response. Because for the first time in decades, something deep in the survival instinct of the snake Sanin, the same instinct that had kept him alive through wars and betrayals and the wrath of his own teacher, that instinct looked at the boy in front of him and screamed one word: run. Naruto's right arm expanded. It inflated, doubling, tripling, the mochi swelling and hardening simultaneously, coating itself in armament haki, so black it created a shadow in direct light. The friction of the expansion superheated the surface. The air around his fist rippled with thermal distortion. The mochi smoked, then it ignited, a fist, the size of a small building, blazing with heat, black with haki, moving at a speed that broke the sound barrier. Yaki mochi! The punch connected with Orochimaru's hastily raised arms. Trees exploded. The first 10 trees in the punch's path disintegrated into splinters. Orochimaru's body ragdolled through the air, crashing through tree after tree. 11, 12. Each impact spraying wood and leaves and bark in concentric circles of destruction. He hit the 11th tree and stopped. The tree held, barely. Its trunk cracked in a spiral pattern from root to canopy. Orochimaru slid down the trunk. He landed on his feet. Blood dripped from his mouth. Real blood, not the fake kind he sometimes used for dramatic effect. His arms were burned. The haki had punched through his chakra reinforcement like it wasn't there. He looked up. Naruto was rewrapping his scarf. The Merienda shrine behind him was undamaged. Of course it was. He'd angled the punch away from the donuts. What? Orochimaru breathed, and the word came out fragmented. Are you? Leave. Orochimaru's analytical mind, the mind that had spent decades categorizing and understanding every form of power in the shinobi world, was working overtime. The substance, the hardening, the future prediction. None of it matched any known Kekkei Genkai. None of it was in any file, any research, any forbidden scroll. This was something new, something beyond his taxonomy. He wanted to study it. Every cell in his scientist's brain screamed to engage, to push, to dissect. Every cell in his survivor's body screamed to leave. For once, the survivor won. We will meet again, Naruto-kun. I know we will. I have already seen it. Orochimaru melted into the ground. Snake-style escape. Gone. Naruto stood alone in the devastation. 12 destroyed trees. A furrow in the earth 40 feet long. The smell of burned mochi and ozone. He turned back to his shrine. Picked up a donut. Bit into it. Finished his merienda. The Sanin retreated through the forest with a shattered arm and a mind full of questions. He found Sasuke later. Tried to mark him with the curse mark. The attempt was interrupted by Naruto arriving at the scene, and Orochimaru had to settle for a rushed, incomplete application before fleeing again. The curse mark took hold, but weakly. Sasuke arrived. Naruto carried him to the tower on one shoulder, Sakura running alongside, and when the medical team asked what happened, Naruto said, "A snake bit him. I dealt with the snake." The preliminary rounds of the Chunin exams took place in a vast underground arena beneath the tower. A screen randomized matchups. Genin from every village stood along the upper balconies, watching, waiting. Naruto leaned against the railing, arms and sleeves. Below, the first match began and ended. A Sand Genin named Kankuro used puppet techniques to dismantle an opponent from rain. Competent. Predictable. The screen scrolled. Naruto Uzumaki versus Kiba Inuzuka. Kiba grinned from across the balcony. "Finally! I've been waiting to pay you back for the academy." He vaulted over the railing and dropped to the arena floor. Akamaru, his ninkin, barked from his jacket. Naruto took the stairs. He walked to the center of the arena. Hands in sleeves, scarf high. The crowd, Genin, Junin, proctors, all watched. The reputation from Wave had spread through whispers. Everyone wanted to see. Kiba crouched into his clan's fighting stance. Beast mimicry, man-beast clone. Akamaru transformed. 2 Kibas, feral, fast, claws out. "We're gonna hit you so hard that scarf comes off." Naruto stood still. "You will strike from the left, then throw a smoke bomb." Kiba blinked, Then he snarled. He struck from the left. Mid-swing, his hand dipped into his pouch and hurled a smoke bomb. Smoke filled the arena. Inside the cloud, Kiba's nose tracked Naruto's position. He charged, both clones converging from opposite angles. Fang over fang. Twin drills of spinning fury tore through the smoke. They hit Mochi. Naruto had stretched a wide flat palm, dense and sticky, directly in the path of the first drill. Kiba's spinning body sank into the surface and stuck. His rotation died. His momentum died. He hung there, embedded in Naruto's palm, legs kicking. The clone hit the same palm from the other side. Same result. 2 Kibas. Stuck. Naruto raised his palm to eye level. He looked at the thrashing, snarling Inuzuka pinned to his hand like a butterfly on a board. Then he pressed the palm down. Kiba hit the arena floor face first. The clone poofed back into Akamaru, who whimpered and retreated to the far corner. The smoke cleared. Naruto stood over Kiba's prone body, hand returning to his sleeve. 3 seconds. Match over. The arena was silent. Then, what? Ino screamed from the balcony. Did that just happen? Tenten whispered. Might Guy leaned forward, his eyes wide. That boy. He read the attack before it was launched. The timing, the counter, the economy of movement. This is not a genin skill. Kakashi said nothing. His book was closed. His eye was fixed on the arena. Kiba was scraped off the floor by the medical team. Akamaru licked his face. Kiba groaned. What the hell hit me? Mochi, Sakura said from the balcony, almost apologetically. Mochi? I got beat by a dessert? Nobody laughed, because it wasn't funny. It was terrifying. The prelims continued. Sasuke fought and won, but roughly the curse mark flared and Kakashi had to seal it afterward. Sakura fought Ino to a draw, which was respectable. Shikamaru won through strategy. Tamari won through power. Gaara won through sand and the kind of brutality that made the room go cold. But the moment everyone remembered, the clip they would replay in their minds, was Naruto ending Kiba in 3 seconds with an open palm. 1 month. That was the gap between the prelims and the finals. 1 month to train, to prepare, to convince yourself that you weren't about to walk into a meat grinder. The finals bracket was set. Naruto versus Neji Hyuga. First match. The opener, Naruto trained with Anko. They used Training Ground 44, the Forest of Death, because Anko had permanent access and because the giant trees absorbed damage well. Anko pushed him. She was a special Junin. She fought dirty, fast, and with enough snake summons to make the forest floor slither. None of it worked. Shadow snake hands! Snakes erupted from her sleeve, fangs bared. Naruto caught them in mochi, dissolved the summons, and had a haki-coated finger pressed against Anko's forehead before she could blink. Dead. Oh, come on! She swatted his hand away. How am I supposed to help you train when I can't even touch you? You are helping. Your attack patterns are unpredictable. It sharpens my sight. Your sight is already sharp enough to shave with. Sharpness has no upper limit. Anko flopped onto the grass. You know, most kids your age are worried about crushes and homework. I am not most children. Yeah, no kidding. She pulled out a dango stick from somewhere. Anko always had dango somewhere, and chewed. You nervous about Neji? No. Not even a little? The Hyuga's gentle fist targets Tenketsu points. My body is mochi. I do not have Tenketsu in the traditional sense. His entire fighting style is useless against me. So you're going to embarrass him. I am going to educate him. Anko grinned. That's worse. The finals arrived under a sky so blue it looked painted. The arena was packed. Every seat filled. The Hokage sat in the VIP box with a guest. The Kazekage, who would later turn out to not be the Kazekage at all, but that was a problem for later. Junin lined the upper rails. Civilians packed the general seating. Vendors sold snacks. A festival atmosphere that barely contained the violence about to unfold. Genma Shiranui stood in the center of the arena. Senbon in teeth. First match of the Chunin exam finals. Naruto Uzumaki versus Neji Hyuga. Fighters, come down. Neji dropped from the contestant box. He landed gracefully, white robes settling, Byakugan already active, his veins bulged around his eyes. He stood with the rigid posture of someone who believed in destiny the way other people believed in gravity. Naruto took the stairs. He walked to the center. Each step deliberate. The crowd noise dimmed with each stride, as if the arena itself was lowering its volume to accommodate his presence. He stopped 10 feet from Neji and stood. The size difference was almost comical. Naruto towered over Neji by a full head. The scarf hit his jaw. His eyes looked down. Neji activated his stance. You are fated to lose. The moment our match was decided, the outcome was written. A clanless orphan cannot. You claim to see destiny, Hyuga? Neji stopped mid-sentence. Let me show you what it truly means to see the future. Genma's senbon shifted. Begin, Neji moved. He was fast, Hyuga trained. His palms struck forward in rapid succession, targeting the tenketsu points along Naruto's arm. 8 trigrams, 64 palms. 2 palms, 4 palms, 8 palms. Each strike hit Mochi. Every point of contact sank into Naruto's body. His arms, his chest, his shoulders, all of it shifted at the point of impact, becoming soft, dense mochi that absorbed the gentle fist strikes like they were being thrown into wet clay. 16 palms. 32 palms. Neji's hands were moving at blinding speed, his Byakugan screaming at him that nothing was working, but his body was committed to the technique and couldn't stop mid-sequence. 64 palms. He finished. Panting, hands trembling, every ounce of his chakra put into the clan's signature technique. Naruto stood exactly where he'd been standing, unchanged, unmarked, his body reconstituted, mochi hardening back into flesh. He looked at Neji the way a mountain looks at rain. Are you finished? The crowd erupted in disbelief. The Hyuga delegation in the stands sat in stunned, rigid silence. Hiyashi Hyuga's jaw was tight. The 64 palms had been absorbed like it was nothing. Like the technique that had defined the Hyuga clan for centuries was a children's game. Neji's Byakugan locked onto Naruto's chakra system. What he saw, or rather what he didn't see, shook him. There were no tenketsu points. The chakra flowed everywhere, through every cell, like the boy's entire body was one continuous pathway. There was nothing to close, nothing to target. The gentle fist was fighting water. Impossible, Neji breathed. Your chakra system is not like yours, or anyone's. Naruto lifted one hand. My turn. Above the arena in the air, mochi materialized from the chakra in the atmosphere, pulled and shaped and solidified by will alone. Floating shapes, ringed and flat, hovering like halos. A dozen of them, perfectly circular. They looked like donuts. The crowd stared up. Whispers broke out. One child in the stands pointed and said, "Mommy, are those donuts?" They were. From each donut, a fist erupted. Massive, black with armament haki, each one the size of a grown man's torso. 12 fists, hanging from 12 floating mochi rings, pointed downward at Neji Hyuga like the wrath of a very specific god. Chikara mochi. Neji's eyes went wide. He spun. 8 trigrams. Rotation. Chakra exploded from his body, forming the signature Hyuga defensive dome. A spinning shield of pure energy designed to deflect any attack from any angle. The fists dropped. They hit the rotation from every direction simultaneously, hammering the spinning dome like pistons, each one heavier than the last, each one coated in haki that crackled against the chakra barrier. The rotation held for 1 second, 2, 3 fists hit the same point at the same time. The rotation shattered. The remaining fists drove through, and Neji Hyuga, genius of the Hyuga clan, champion of destiny, master of the gentle fist, was hammered into the arena floor like a nail into wood. The impact cratered the ground. Dust erupted. The arena shook. When the dust settled, Neji lay at the bottom of a 6-foot crater, eyes unfocused, body broken, Byakugan deactivated. He was breathing. He was alive. He was completely, utterly, irrevocably defeated. Naruto stood at the crater's edge. He looked down. Your destiny ends here. The arena held its breath. Then it detonated. The crowd screamed. Civilians, shinobi, vendors, the noise was seismic. People were on their feet, hands on their heads, mouths open. In the VIP box, the Hokage's pipe had gone out. The Kazekage's hands were gripping the armrest. In the contestant box, Shikamaru leaned back and said, "I quit." Tamari stared. What? If I have to fight that at any point, I quit, right now, in advance. Gaara, who had spent his entire life believing he was the most dangerous person in any room, stood at the railing and stared at Naruto with an expression that mixed recognition and something no one had ever seen on his face before. Interest. Among the Junin, reactions cascaded. Guy's mouth was open. Kurenai had grabbed Asuma's arm without realizing it. Asuma's cigarette had burned down to the filter. Kakashi stood with his arms folded. His visible eye was unreadable. But when Anko appeared beside him, leaning against the railing with a stick of dango, she caught the faintest tremor in his hand. Scared? She asked. Proud, Kakashi said. Then quieter. And yes, a little scared. Anko bit her dango. Good, you should be. Below, the medical team retrieved Neji from the crater. As they lifted him onto a stretcher, his eyes fluttered open. He looked up at the sky. Blue. Empty. Indifferent. Destiny, he whispered. Then he laughed. A small, broken, genuine laugh. There is no destiny. There is just him. The remaining matches of the finals played out, but the energy of the arena never fully recovered from the opener. Everything that followed existed in the shadow of 12 floating fists and a shattered rotation. Sasuke fought Gaara. It was a battle, Chidori versus Sand, and Sasuke landed a hit. Drew blood. The crowd cheered. But everyone, including Sasuke, knew the truth. The real fight hadn't been his match. The real fight had been first. Then the invasion began. Genjutsu descended on the arena like a blanket. Civilians slumped in their seats, asleep. The Kazekage revealed himself as Orochimaru, snake skin sloughing away, golden eyes gleaming with madness. Sound and Sand Ninja dropped from the walls. Explosions ripped through the village perimeter. A giant snake summon crashed through the western wall. Chaos. Orochimaru trapped the third Hokage in a barrier on the arena roof. A purple flame box that no one could enter. The god of shinobi versus his fallen student. A battle that would end an era. Below in the arena, Naruto stood in the center of the destruction. Sound Ninja attacked him. 3. Chunin level. Confident in numbers, Naruto turned his arms into mochi and expanded them, clotheslining all three in a single sweep. They hit the walls and didn't get back up. A Sand Junin dropped from the stands, blade drawn. Mochi Mochi. Zangiri. A horizontal slash of haki-hardened mochi bisected the blade, continued through the Junin's flak jacket, and sent him tumbling across the arena floor. Kakashi appeared at his side. Naruto. Gaara fled the arena. Sasuke went after him. Future sight flickered. Naruto saw it. Gaara, partial transformation, one-tailed chakra cloak, fighting Sasuke in the forest outside the village. Sasuke was losing. I will retrieve them. The village is under attack. We need you here. Naruto looked at the chaos. The burning buildings, the screaming civilians, the sound and sand shinobi pouring through gaps in the wall. He raised both hands. Mochi erupted from the arena floor. An ocean of it. It poured over the arena walls and into the streets below, a tidal wave of dense, thus sticky material that caught enemy combatants and held them. Sound Ninja stuck mid-run. Sand Shinobi trapped mid-jutsu. The mochi filled the streets around the arena like expanding foam, immobilizing dozens of enemies without killing a single one. That will hold them. Kakashi stared at the streets. His student had just neutralized an entire sector of the invasion with a wave of his hand. Go, Kakashi said. Naruto went. He moved through the forest like a force of nature, tree branches bending under his weight, the ground shaking with each leap. He found them in a clearing. Gaara half transformed, one arm a massive sand claw, one tail of chakra whipping behind him, eyes yellow and manic. Sasuke on the ground, curse mark fading, chakra depleted, blood on his face. Uzumaki, Gaara growled, his voice layered with the Shikaku's influence. Mother wants your blood. Your mother is a Tanuki spirit sealed inside your gut. She does not get a vote. Gaara screamed and charged. The sand arm swung, a claw the size of a wagon, aimed to crush. Naruto caught it. One hand, black with haki, fingers wrapping around the sand claw and squeezing. The sand compacted, cracked, collapsed. Gaara's arm dissolved. The Jinchuriki leapt back, reforming, growing. More sand, more tails. The partial transformation was accelerating toward full release. Sleep, Naruto said. He stretched his arm. Mochi coiled around Gaara's reforming body. Layer after layer, dense and heavy, compressing the sand, suffocating the transformation. Gaara thrashed. One tail, two tails. The sand surged. Naruto poured more mochi, thicker, denser. Haki coated at the points of contact, creating a shell so strong the sand couldn't break through. He was burying a Biju transformation in dessert, and it was working. Gaara's transformation slowed. The tails receded. The sand claw dissolved. Inside the mochi cocoon, the Jinchuriki's chakra flickered, sputtered, and dimmed. When Naruto released the mochi, Gaara lay in a crater of compressed sand, breathing hard, eyes wide, human again, fully human. The Shukaku's influence pushed back by sheer overwhelming force. How? Gaara whispered. I am a monster. How did you? You are not a monster. You are a boy with bad luck and worse parents. Gaara stared. Nobody had ever said that to him. Nobody had ever looked at the host of the one tail and seen the host instead of the tail. I have a demon too, Naruto said. It does not define me. It never will. He extended a hand. Gaara looked at it for a long, fragile moment. Then he took it. Naruto pulled him to his feet. "Eat something sweet," Naruto said. "It helps." In the years to come, Gaara would trace his entire transformation, from weapon to protector, from monster to Kazekage, back to that moment. A hand extended, a sentence spoken. The taste of the donut Naruto gave him that afternoon, which he ate in confused silence while sitting beside the boy who just wrapped him in mochi. The invasion was repelled. Orochimaru fled, arms sealed by the third Hokage's final jutsu. The god of shinobi fell in battle, a death that shook the village to its foundations. Naruto stood at the funeral. He wore black. His scarf was dark already, so nothing changed there. He stood at the back, away from the crowds, watching the smoke rise from the funeral pyre. Anko found him after. They sat on their rooftop. No donuts today. No dango. Just silence and rain, and two people who understood that the world had gotten smaller. "He was the only one in this village who treated me like a person from the start," Naruto said. "Yeah, I should have been there. You were dealing with a giant sand monster. You can't be everywhere. I should be able to." Anko didn't argue. She just sat with him until the rain stopped. The aftermath was something. Jiraiya of the Sannin returned to the village and was immediately brought to Naruto by Kakashi. "So this is the kid," Jiraiya said, arms folded, studying the towering genin with the eye of a man who'd trained a Hokage. "You know, your father would have been." "I know who my father was," Jiraiya blinked. "You, how?" "I look exactly like him. The Hokage's face is on the mountain. I am not stupid." Jiraiya coughed. "Right, well, I'm supposed to train you." "You may try." The Sannin bristled. "Listen, kid, I know what you've done. You are strong. But you are also 30 years past your peak. You drink too much and your left knee clicks when it rains. I will accept training in sealing arts and sage techniques. Everything else, I surpass you." The silence that followed was the kind that makes birds change direction mid-flight. Jiraiya stared. Then he started laughing. "Oh, Minato, your kid is a piece of work." He wiped his eyes. "Fine, sealing and sage techniques, but you're carrying my bags on the road." "Acceptable." Jiraiya's training period was brief but intense. He taught Naruto summoning, toads, which Naruto found aesthetically inferior but tactically useful. He taught him the Rasengan, Minato's legacy technique. Naruto learned it in 2 days. The spiral of compressed chakra sat in his palm like it had always been there, which in a sense it had. The rotation, the compression, the control. These were principles his soul already understood. Then he mixed it with mochi. The mochi Rasengan was Naruto's invention. A spiraling ball of compressed mochi chakra, hardened with haki at the surface, that upon impact expanded in every direction, drilling, spreading, coating, and crushing simultaneously. Jiraiya saw the first test against a training boulder. The boulder didn't break. It was swallowed, encased in mochi and compressed until it was the size of a marble. Jiraiya sat down heavily. "What are you?" "I am Naruto Uzumaki, and I am running late for the merienda." The retrieval mission came without warning. Sasuke left the village at night. He didn't leave a note. He didn't say goodbye. He walked through the gates with his hands in his pockets and his back to everything that had ever cared about him, heading toward Orochimaru's waiting arms and the promise of power that tasted like poison. Sakura found out first. She ran to the gate. She begged. She cried. She said everything a teammate says when someone they love is walking off a cliff. Sasuke knocked her out and laid her on a bench. Gentle, which made it worse. Naruto was at the merienda when the message reached him. Anko crashed onto the rooftop, breathing hard. Sasuke's gone, defected, heading for Orochimaru. Naruto set down his donut. His eyes didn't change, his posture didn't shift, but the air around him got heavy. "How long?" 2 hours head start. Shikamaru's putting together a retrieval team. "I do not need a team." He stood. The merienda shrine dissolved. He pulled his scarf tight. "I will bring him back." He moved Shikamaru's retrieval team. Neji, Kiba, Choji, Lee had already deployed along the pursuit route. They each engaged one of Orochimaru's Sound 4 bodyguards in separate battles along the forest path. These fights were their own stories, their own struggles, and Naruto passed through them like a comet passing through an asteroid field. Aware, respectful, but unstoppable, he caught echoes as he ran. Choji's butterfly wings against the fat one. Neji's rotation, rebuilt, refined since the exams, against the spider summoner. Kiba's nose tracking through forests, Lee's gates opening against the bone user. He did not stop. They were handling their fights. His was ahead, the Valley of the End. Two statues, Madara Uchiha and Hashirama Senju, facing each other across a waterfall that dropped into a basin of churning water. A monument to a rivalry that had shaped the world. And now standing on Madara's head, arms folded, curse marks spreading across his skin like black fire, stood Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto landed on Hashirama's head. They stared at each other across the waterfall. The mist from the falling water caught the fading daylight. "You are a fool, Sasuke." Sasuke's Sharingan blazed, three tomoes spinning. "A fool? I'm the only one in this village thinking clearly. Konoha can't give me what I need. It can't give me the power to kill your brother. I know, I have always known. Then you know why I have to leave. I know why you think you have to leave, and I know you are wrong." Sasuke's jaw clenched. The curse mark pulsed. Black patterns crawled up his neck, across his cheek. "You don't understand. You've always been strong. You were born strong. You've never had to watch someone take everything from you and know in your bones that you were too weak to stop it. You are making assumptions about pain you have never asked me about. I don't need to ask. Look at you." Sasuke's voice cracked. The composure shattered. "You caught Zabuza's blade in your body. You punched a Sanin through a forest. You turned Neji into a joke. Every single day I train until my hands bleed, and every single day you do something that makes the gap bigger. You've always been perfect." The word hung in the air, perfect. Naruto stood on Hashirama's stone head. The waterfall roared. The sun was sinking. He reached up and unwound his scarf. Slowly, deliberately, loop by loop, the fabric fell away from his face, caught the wind, fluttered. Sasuke saw the teeth, rows of them, elongated, sharp, inhuman. The mutation born from the collision of a reincarnated soul and a tailed beast's chakra. A mouth that had made children scream and adults reach for weapons. The thing he hid. The thing he protected more fiercely than any jutsu or technique or secret. "I am not perfect." The words came out raw, unfiltered. The voice of the 8-year-old in the alley. The voice of the boy on the rooftop eating donuts alone. Terrified someone would see. "I have never been perfect. I have only ever been too afraid to let anyone see the proof." Sasuke stared at the face, the teeth, the vulnerability so total and unexpected that his Sharingan flickered, as if even the eyes of the Uchiha didn't know how to process what they were seeing. "But I will not let you fall." Naruto's voice hardened, the bedrock beneath everything. "You are my teammate, my family, and family does not leave family behind to rot in a snake's mouth. Move, Naruto. Make me." The curse mark erupted. Stage 2. Sasuke's skin went gray, his hair lengthened, turned white. A dark, cross-shaped mark spread across his face. Wings, massive, hand-shaped wings, burst from his back. His chakra spiked, dark and violent, filling the valley with pressure. He dropped from Madara's head and hovered over the water. His left hand crackled. Chidori! Black lightning, curse mark lightning. The sound was different, deeper, angrier. He charged. Naruto jumped from Hashirama's head, and the world changed. It started at his feet. The water of the valley basin rippled, thickened, and turned white. The stone of the statue softened, stretched, became pliable. The cliffs on either side of the valley lost their rigid texture and began to flow. The waterfall slowed, its water becoming dense and sweet-smelling, mochi. Everything was becoming mochi, awakening. The devil fruit awakened through chakra. Naruto's power reached out past his body and infected the environment itself. Every surface within 100 meters of him transformed, stone to mochi, water to mochi, air to thick, sweet-smelling density. The Valley of the End became a landscape of living, breathing desert. Sasuke's charge hit a wall of mochi that rose from the basin surface. He tore through it. Another wall. He smashed it. The environment itself was fighting him, regenerating as fast as he destroyed it, wrapping tendrils around his wings, coating his feet, slowing his momentum. What is this? Sasuke screamed, black Chidori carving through mochi that regrew the moment it was cut. What the hell is this? Naruto landed on the mochi-covered basin. He stood on the surface of what had been water, now solid and dense. The entire valley pulsed around him, living terrain, his terrain. This is what I am, Sasuke, all of it. Everything I've been holding back. Sasuke tore free. Wings beating, Chidori blazing, he rocketed toward Naruto in a straight line. No feints, no tricks, just raw, screaming, curse-mark-fueled power aimed at the one person standing between him and his purpose. Naruto's eyes glowed. Future sight. He saw every microsecond of the approach, the angle, the timing, the exact moment Sasuke's hand would reach his chest. He didn't dodge. He raised his right fist. It expanded. Massive. Building-sized. Black with haki so dense that the air around it warped. Spikes of hardened mochi jutted from the knuckles like a mace head. The friction of the expansion set the surface ablaze. A fist wreathed in actual fire, burning and black and catastrophic. Buzz-cut mochi. The fist fell. Sasuke's black chidori met it. The collision split the sky. The shockwave from the impact traveled vertically, a column of force that punched through the cloud cover and left a circular hole in the overcast sky through which raw sunlight streamed. The valley walls cracked. Hashirama's statue lost an arm. Madara's statue cracked across the face. The waterfall reversed direction for 3 seconds. At the point of impact, black lightning and burning mochi detonated in a sphere of destruction that vaporized the mochi basin and sent a wave of force outward that stripped bark from trees a mile away. When it settled, when the light faded and the sound stopped, and the world remembered how to be quiet, the valley was scarred. The basin was a crater. The statues were damaged. The sky had a hole in it. Sasuke lay at the bottom of the crater, unconscious. Curse mark receded, wings gone. Human again but Baten, Naruto stood at the edge of the crater. He was breathing hard. For the first time in the entire story, in every battle, every confrontation, every impossible display, Naruto Uzumaki was tired. He walked down into the crater, slowly, each step heavy. His body ached in places that Mochi couldn't smooth over. The awakening had cost him. He reached Sasuke. He knelt. "You idiot." He scooped Sasuke off the ground, slung him over one shoulder. The Uchiha was lighter than he looked. Or maybe Naruto was just used to carrying weight. He climbed out of the crater. The valley was quiet. The mochi was dissolving, the environment returning to stone and water as the awakening faded. The waterfall resumed. The statue stood broken but enduring. Naruto walked, step by step, out of the valley through the forest toward Konoha, carrying his brother. He wrapped his scarf back around his face as he walked. The familiar fabric settled against his jaw. The world was where it should be. A mile from the village gates, a figure dropped from the trees. Anko Mitarashi, trench coat, wild hair, eyes scanning for injuries, counting limbs, doing the mental triage that combat medics and concerned family do simultaneously. She looked at Naruto, battered, exhausted, carrying an unconscious Uchiha. She reached into her coat and pulled out a bag, tossed it. Naruto's free hand came up, the one not holding Sasuke, and caught the bag without looking. He felt the weight, the shape. Donuts, still warm. He nodded. Anko fell into step beside him. No words, no debriefing, no questions about the unconscious traitor on his shoulder, or the distant sound of a valley that would take months to repair. Just two people, walking home, one bag of donuts between them. The medical team met them at the gates. Sasuke was taken to the hospital. Tsunade, newly installed as 5th Hokage after a retrieval mission that was its own story, personally oversaw his treatment. The curse mark was sealed. The injuries healed. The chains of his defection were wound tight with probation and ambush surveillance. Sakura cried when she saw Sasuke in the hospital bed. She cried harder when Naruto walked in, battered and scarf slightly askew, and said, "He is alive. He will stay." "How can you be sure?" she whispered. "Because next time, I will not let him get this far." Sakura looked at the towering figure, at the exhaustion he wore like a second skin, at the absolute certainty in his voice even when his body was running on fumes. "Thank you," she said. He inclined his head. Kakashi found him on the hospital roof that evening. Naruto was staring at the village, the lights, the buildings, the mountain with the Hokage faces. "You brought him back," Kakashi said. "I said I would. You also put a hole in the sky. It will close." Kakashi almost laughed. Almost. He settled for his eye crinkle. "Jiraiya wants to take you on a training trip. 3 years. The Akatsuki are moving. They're after the tailed beasts. After you." "I know. Of course you do." Kakashi put a hand on Naruto's shoulder. "For what it's worth, I've never been prouder of a student." Naruto looked at the hand on his shoulder. He said nothing, but beneath the scarf something shifted. Not a smile. Smiles were for the rooftop, for Anko, for moments of donuts and silence. Just an easing, a loosening, the mountain allowing itself for one moment to be a boy. Kakashi, You were a good teacher. Kakashi's eye widened. In 15 years of shinobi service, through ambu and wars, and the death of everyone he'd ever loved, that sentence hit harder than any jutsu he'd ever taken. He didn't trust himself to speak. He squeezed Naruto's shoulder once and walked away. The next morning, Naruto stood at the village gates. Travel pack, storage scrolls filled with sealed donuts, scarf wrapped tight. Jiraiya beside him, already complaining about the weight of his own bag. Anko was there. She leaned against the gate, arms folded, a dango stick between her teeth. She wasn't crying. Anko didn't cry. But her eyes were suspiciously bright. 3 years? She said. 3 years. You better bring me back something. I will bring back something worthy. She pulled the dango stick from her mouth and pointed it at him. You better come back taller. I am already taller than you. Taller? I said what I said. He almost laughed. The eyes crinkled. The mountain shifted. He turned, walked through the gates. Jiraiya beside him, yapping about hot springs and research and the finer points of sage training. Naruto didn't look back. He didn't need to. He'd already seen what was behind him. What mattered was what lay ahead. The road stretched long and dust-colored into a future even his eyes couldn't fully map. New enemies. Stronger enemies. The Akatsuki's red clouds, the tailed beasts. The war that was coming, whether the world wanted it or not. Jiraiya talked for the first 40 miles. He talked about Minato, how the 4th Hokage had learned the Rasengan in 3 years, how his Flying Thunder God technique had turned the tide of the 3rd Shinobi War, how his hair was the same impossible yellow that Naruto wore like a genetic signature. He talked about sage training on Mount Myoboku, about the Toad Elders who could teach natural energy absorption, about the balance required to fuse nature's chakra with the human body without turning to stone. Naruto listened. He walked beside the Sannin with his hands in his sleeves and his scarf catching the road dust. He listened the way a man listens to someone describing a country he has already visited. The key to sage mode, Jiraiya said, pulling out a notebook covered in ink stains and what appeared to be lipstick marks, is stillness. You have to stop moving entirely. Stop thinking. Let the natural energy flow into you like water filling a cup. It takes most sages years to... How long did it take you? Jiraiya puffed his chest. 6 months, which I'll have you know, was considered prodigious. Understood. They reached Mount Myoboku on the 3rd week. The Toad Sanctuary sat hidden between dimensions, accessible through a reverse summoning that compressed the world into a tube of light and deposited them on a mountain that smelled like moss and old rain. The elder toads, Fukasaku and Shima, greeted Jiraiya with the weary affection of grandparents who know exactly how much trouble their grandchild is going to cause. They looked at Naruto and went very still. Jiraiya boy, Fukasaku said slowly, his ancient eyes narrowing beneath heavy lids. This child's chakra, it is wrong. I prefer different, Naruto said. It flows through his whole body, Shima whispered, hopping closer. Like blood, like sap. There are no channels, no pathways. It is just everywhere. That is correct. Fukasaku circled him twice. Sage training requires channeling natural energy through existing chakra networks. If you have no networks, then the natural energy will have nowhere to go but everywhere. The toads exchanged a look. That is either genius or catastrophe, Fukasaku said. It is the first one. Sage training began the next morning. The traditional method involved sitting on a spike of stone, perfectly still, while toad oil applied to the skin helped draw in natural energy. The practitioner had to balance the intake, too much nature chakra and the body petrified into stone. Too little and the transformation failed. Naruto sat on the spike, closed his eyes, drew in natural energy, his body changed. The mochi came first. It seeped from his skin like sweat, coating his arms and torso in a thin, reactive layer of dense, living material. Then the natural energy hit the mochi and something unprecedented happened. The mochi absorbed it, pulled it in like a sponge. The natural energy didn't flow through Tenketsu because there were no Tenketsu. It saturated the mochi itself, turning Naruto's entire body into a conduit. His skin took on a faint orange hue. His eyes shifted, the irises developing a horizontal bar through the pupil, toad-like but sharper, predatory. The air around him thickened until it was almost visible, a shimmer of pressure that made the grass at the base of the spike flatten outward in a perfect circle. Mochi Sage mode. Fukasaku dropped his walking stick. How long has he been sitting there? The elder toad stammered. Jiraiya checked his watch. 11 minutes. 11. Fukasaku looked at the boy on the spike, then at Jiraiya, then back at the boy. It took you 6 months. I am painfully aware. Naruto opened his eyes. The sage-enhanced pupils swept the landscape. Future sight, already sharp, had become something else entirely. The ghostly overlay that normally showed him seconds ahead was now a cascading river of probability. Branching timelines visible 3, 4, 5 minutes into the future during this state of absolute calm. He could see Fukasaku scratching his chin 4 minutes from now. He could see Shima calling them for lunch in 6. He could see a bird landing on the spike's edge in 2 minutes and 14 seconds. The bird landed in 2 minutes and 14 seconds. This is adequate, Naruto said. Jiraiya sat down on a rock. He pulled out his notebook. He stared at the blank page. He put the notebook away. You know, the Sanin said, when Minato mastered Sage Mode, I threw a party. I cried. I told everyone at the bar. It was the proudest day of my teaching career. And now I'm wondering if you even need me here. Naruto stepped off the spike. The sage energy held, the mochi layer maintaining the balance automatically, a self-regulating system that kept the natural energy cycling without the need for stillness. He could move, fight, run. The sage transformation held. You are useful, Naruto said. You know things I do not. History, ceiling theory, the geography of every hidden village. These are things future sight cannot provide. Jiraiya blinked. Was that a compliment? It was an assessment. I'm taking it as a compliment. The months that followed fell into a rhythm. They traveled from country to country, rain, grass, waterfall, the nameless border regions where laws thinned and the strong did as they pleased. Jiraiya taught sealing arts, and Naruto devoured them. Uzumaki blood carried an affinity for Fuinjutsu that went deeper than training. The seal work spoke to him in a language his hands understood before his mind caught up. He redesigned the 4-symbol seal on his own stomach, optimizing the Kyuubi's chakra bleed with modifications that made Jiraiya pale. You changed the seal, on your own body, without telling me. The original design had inefficiencies. Minato designed that seal. I am aware, he was brilliant. He was also working under combat conditions with minutes to live. I had 3 weeks in a reference library. Jiraiya opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, closed it. Fine, he said. Just tell me next time before you modify a seal containing the most powerful tailed beast in existence. Acceptable. The training grounds they used were never the same twice, because Naruto's sparring sessions had a tendency to reshape the landscape. He refined awakening, the environmental transformation that turned terrain into mochi. In the Valley of the End, it had been a desperate burst, uncontrolled and exhausting. Now, through months of focused practice, he could sustain it. Minutes became hours. The radius expanded from 100 meters to a quarter mile. Within the awakened zone, everything was his weapon. The ground, the trees, the rocks, the very air carrying particles of mochi that could harden on command. Jiraiya sparred with him once a week. These sessions followed a pattern. Jiraiya attacked with everything he had. Rasengan variants, toad summons, sage techniques, fire jutsu, earth jutsu, the full repertoire of a man who had spent 50 years collecting combat knowledge. Naruto let the attacks come. He read them, dodged what was worth dodging, absorbed what was worth absorbing, and ended each spar by pressing a single haki-coated finger against Jiraiya's forehead. Dead. Every time. You know, Jiraiya said one evening, nursing a sake bottle and a bruised ego, I trained one Hokage and fought 2 others. I've battled pain, I've survived wars, and your little finger trick makes me feel like an academy student. You are stronger than you believe. Your weakness is not power, it is focus. Ouch. You think about women during combat. I absolutely do not. 12 seconds into our spar today, a woman walked past the training field. Your eyes moved. Your stance shifted. I ended it 3 seconds later. Jiraiya had no response to that. The key moment came 17 months into the trip. They were traveling through a rain-soaked border town between earth and grass country when Naruto stopped walking. Jiraiya, 3 steps ahead, noticed the silence. He turned. What? We have company. 30 seconds. From the tree line emerged a figure, cloaked in Akatsuki red clouds, moving with the arrogance of someone on a routine assignment. Sent to confirm the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki's location and report back. The scout saw two figures on the road. The tall one with the scarf. Target confirmed. He reached for his communication scroll. Naruto's arm stretched across 40 feet of road, caught the scout by the collar, and yanked him forward. The man flew through the rain. Naruto's other arm turned black, full armament haki, and he delivered a single open palm strike to the scout's sternum. Block Mochi. The scout hit the ground with enough force to crater the road 3 feet deep. His communication scroll, his weapons pouch, and his consciousness all left him simultaneously. Jiraiya stood on the road. He had pulled out his notebook. He had opened it to a blank page. He held his pen. He had written nothing. Did you? Jiraiya started. 8 seconds. 8. The Sanin looked at the crater, at the unconscious Akatsuki scout embedded in it, at the rain filling the depression around the body. 8 seconds. He was slow. Jiraiya closed the notebook. I'm gonna need a drink. You already need a drink. That is a separate issue. The 3 years passed. They trained. They traveled. Naruto grew, physically, the way mountains grow, slowly and irrevocably. By 15, he was 6 feet 2 and still climbing. His shoulders had broadened past the point where standard issue flak jackets could contain them. His scarf, replaced 3 times during the trip because his neck kept thickening, was a deep crimson weave that Jiraiya had bought from a textile merchant in Lightning Country. It was the only gift Naruto accepted during the entire trip. His mochi had evolved. The texture was finer now, the control absolute. He could produce constructs. His armament haki had reached the point where full-body coating was sustainable for minutes at a time, turning him into a figure of living black iron that hummed with density. His future sight in Sage mode stretched to absurd lengths. 10 minutes of calm state prediction, 3 minutes in active combat. He could read a battlefield before the battle started and know where every combatant would stand at its end. And through all 3 years, every single day at 3 p.m., no matter where they were, in a mountain pass, a foreign village, a rainstorm, a desert, Naruto built his merienda. The mochi shrine materialized. The donuts appeared from sealed storage. The scarf came down. He ate. Jiraiya learned not to interrupt. He learned to sit nearby, read his book, and wait. He learned that this ritual was not a habit, it was a religion. And the boy practiced it with more devotion than any monk the Sannin had ever met. On the last day of the 3rd year, they stood on the road leading back to Konoha. The village gates were visible in the distance. Those massive wooden doors that Naruto had last walked through as a 13-year-old genin, carrying an unconscious Uchiha. Ready? Jiraiya asked. I have been ready. For the village? For what comes after? They walked. The gates grew larger. The guards at the post sat up straighter as the 2 figures approached. The tall one with the white mane of hair, recognizable as the Toad Sage, and the taller one beside him, scarf pulled high, presence so heavy that the guards' hands went to their weapons before their brains caught up. State your, the gate guard began, then stopped. He looked at the figure, at the scarf, at the eyes above it, blue, cold measuring. He checked the registry. He checked twice. Naruto Uzumaki? Yes. The guard swallowed. Welcome home. Naruto walked through the gates. Anko Mitarashi was leaning against the inner wall. She had a dango stick between her teeth and her arms were folded across her chest. She had been waiting there since dawn, which she would deny if anyone asked. She looked at him. Her eyes traveled up, past the boots, the reinforced pants, the coat that stretched across shoulders wider than most door frames, the scarf, the jaw hidden behind it. She had to tilt her head back. She had to actually tilt her head back to meet his eyes. You got taller. Naruto said nothing. He stood there, 6'2" and still growing, and looked down at the woman who had once thrown a bag of donuts across a rooftop at a terrified 8-year-old boy. Anko grinned. Wide, genuine, the kind of grin that said everything words would only ruin. That was the reunion. Jiraiya watched the exchange from 5 feet behind, hands in his pockets. He'd spent 3 years with the kid and had never once seen that particular softness in those blue eyes. He filed it away under things to never mention out loud and wandered off toward the nearest bar. The village had changed in 3 years. Buildings rebuilt, New shops. A Hokage monument with 5 faces now. Tsunade's likeness carved into the rock beside her predecessors. But the deeper change was in the way people moved around Naruto as he walked through the main street. They watched. Shopkeepers who had once locked their doors when his shadow crossed their threshold now stood in their doorways. They watched him pass with expressions caught between memory and something newer, something they didn't have a word for yet. Fear, maybe, but a different species of it. The fear you feel watching a storm pass overhead that you know somehow is on your side. Civilians pressed against storefronts. Mothers pulled their children closer, habit, instinct. But the children strained against the grip and stared. One boy, maybe 7, tugged his mother's sleeve and whispered loud enough for the street to hear. "Is that him? The mochi guy?" Naruto kept walking. His footsteps were heavy. Each one made the ground remember his weight. On the rooftops, Anbu perched like crows. 3 of them. They had been assigned to monitor his return, standard procedure for any high-value asset re-entering the village. They watched him walk, and one of them, the squad leader, activated his radio. "He's bigger." "Define bigger," dispatch replied. The Anbu looked at the figure below, at the way his presence seemed to compress the air around him, like the street was a fraction narrower when he stood in it. "I don't have a classification for it." Academy students gathered at the corner near the ramen stand. A new generation, kids who had been toddlers when Naruto left. They knew the name from stories, from older siblings who had watched the Chunin exams, from whispered legends about a Genin who had punched a Hyuga through a crater and walked away eating a donut. They saw him and went silent. 12 children, normally loud enough to shake windows, standing in a row with their mouths open, watching a legend walk past them in the flesh. Naruto's eyes swept them. A flicker of something passed behind the blue, recognition maybe, of himself at that age, of the gap between what they saw and what he was. He kept walking. Sasuke was standing outside the Hokage tower. He leaned against the wall with his arms crossed. A posture so unchanged from 3 years ago that it might have been a photograph. But he was different. Leaner. Harder. The curse mark scar was visible on his neck, sealed but present, a permanent reminder. His eyes were darker, but the fury that had once burned behind them had cooled into something more contained. More dangerous in its way, because contained fire burns hotter. Naruto stopped. Sasuke looked at him. They stood 20 feet apart on the street in front of the Hokage tower. Neither spoke. Neither moved. The silence between them held the weight of a valley and a crater, and a fight that had ripped a hole in the sky. Sasuke inclined his head. 1 degree. The barest possible acknowledgement. Naruto returned it. Same degree. Same brevity. That silence said everything either of them needed to hear. Sakura appeared in the tower doorway. She had grown, taller, stronger, her hands carrying the calluses of 3 years studying under Tsunade. She was a medic nin now, one of the best in the village, and the girl who had once flinched at Naruto's presence had been replaced by a woman who understood power because she wielded it herself. She saw him and her breath caught. The presence hit her like a wall, physical, heavy, the kind of thing you felt in your sternum. She flinched, then she corrected herself, straightened her spine, met his eyes. "Welcome back, Naruto." He nodded. She smiled. Smaller than it would have been 3 years ago, but more real. Inside the tower, Tsunade waited behind her desk. The 5th Hokage, the Slug Princess, a woman who had punched the ground hard enough to create canyons and arm wrestled her way through 3 decades of shinobi politics. She had run this village for 3 years, and in those 3 years, she had faced council meetings, budget crises, reconstruction projects, and threats from every major power on the continent. She knew power. She lived inside it. When Naruto walked through her office door, she paused. Her hands, folded on the desk, pressed slightly harder against each other, her shoulders squared by half an inch. The sake bottle on her desk rattled, a vibration so faint it might have been imagination. Except Shizune noticed it too. Naruto stood in front of the Hokage's desk. He filled the space the way he always filled spaces, completely, inevitably, like the room had been built for someone smaller and was now being informed of its miscalculation. "Naruto," Tsunade said, "you've grown, yes. Jiraiya's report says you've exceeded his ability to train you." "Jiraiya's report is accurate." Tsunade studied him. She had the eyes of a woman who had seen Hashirama's legacy, who had watched her grandfather's wood-style reshape battlefields, who had healed the broken bodies of Kage-level shinobi. She measured Naruto against that scale and found that the scale needed extending. "The Akatsuki are moving," she said. 2 members were spotted near Kumogakure 3 days ago. Thereafter, the 2 tails Jinchuriki. Yugito ni. Tsunade's eyebrow rose. "You know her?" "I know of her. She will be insufficient to stop them. We're sending a support team. Send me." Tsunade looked at him, at the absolute certainty in those 2 words, at the way he said them, flat, final, the way someone states a law of physics rather than making a request. "I'll assemble a squad. I will be enough." The Hokage's jaw tightened. She was not a woman who enjoyed being told what to do in her own office, but she was also not a woman who ignored reality when it stood 6'2" in front of her desk. "Fine, but Kakashi goes with you as support. Acceptable." Naruto left the office. The door closed. Tsunade leaned back in her chair. She stared at the ceiling. "Shizune." "Yes, Lady Tsunade?" "Get me a drink. It's 10 in the morning." "I'm aware." They intercepted them on the road between Fire Country and the Land of Hot Water, a dirt path that wound through hills covered in scrub brush and sparse trees, the kind of unremarkable terrain where nothing important was supposed to happen. Kakuzu and Hidan were walking south, 2 figures in black cloaks decorated with red clouds. Hidan carried his triple-bladed scythe across his shoulders like a farmer carrying a hoe. Kakuzu walked with the heavy, measured stride of a man who had been alive for 90 years and hated every one of them. Hidan was talking. He was always talking. "I'm just saying, Lord Jeshin demands that we perform the proper rites before and after every kill. The pre-kill prayer alone takes 7 minutes. 7. And that's the abbreviated version. The full liturgy," "Shut up," Kakuzu said, "involves a blood offering, a recitation of the 17 names, a genuflection toward the nearest." "I said shut up." "You have no respect for the divine, Kakuzu. This is why your hearts keep getting." They rounded a bend in the road and stopped. Naruto was sitting on a rock. He was eating a donut. He sat with one leg crossed over the other, scarf lowered enough to eat, his massive frame perched on a boulder like a gargoyle that had decided to take a snack break. Beside him, on a small mochi platform, sat 3 more donuts arranged in a neat line. His eyes were half closed. He chewed slowly. "Huh?" he then said. "That's a big kid." Kakuzu's threads tightened beneath his cloak. His 5 hearts pulsed in sequence. Fire, wind, lightning, earth, water. Each one a stolen organ encased in black thread, each one granting him a life and an elemental technique. His eyes narrowed behind the mask. "That's the 9 tails Jinchuriki." He then grinned. The grin split his face in a way that made him look like a man and a wound simultaneously. "Oh, excellent. Lord Jashin smiles upon us today. Let me begin the pre-combat prayer." Naruto swallowed his donut. He reached for his scarf. "You have been walking for 3 hours, he said. "You argued about finances for the first hour, religious practices for the second. The 3rd hour was silence because Kakuzu threatened to remove your head." Hidan's grin faded. "How the hell? You were going to arrive at this bend in 4 minutes. I have been waiting for 6. He wrapped his scarf around his face, pulled it tight, stood. The rock beneath him cracked from the shift in weight. "I am going to give you one opportunity to leave." Hidan laughed. It was the laugh of a man who could not die and knew it. "Leave? Kid, I'm immortal. Lord Jashin himself has." Naruto walked forward. Hidan's scythe swung. It was a fast weapon, designed for slashing. The triple blades connected to a retractable cable that allowed mid-range attacks. The primary blade aimed for Naruto's throat, a horizontal cut meant to draw the blood Hidan needed for his ritual. The blade passed through Naruto's neck. Through it. A gap of mochi opened at the point of contact, the neck splitting like water around a stone. The blade occupying empty space while Naruto's body maintained its shape above and below the cut. The mochi closed on the cable. Held it. Hidan pulled. The cable didn't move. He pulled harder. His feet slid on the dirt. The cable was embedded in Naruto's mochi neck like a thread sewn into clay. Naruto grabbed the cable with one hand and yanked. Hidan left the ground. His feet departed from the dirt road and his body became a projectile, flying forward, scythe abandoned, arms windmilling. Naruto caught him by the face with his other hand, armament haki, black and dense, and drove him downward. Block Mochi. Hiden hit the road. The impact fractured the packed earth in a radius of 50 feet. Cracks raced outward like the road was a sheet of ice that had finally found its breaking point. Dust erupted. Birds fled. A tree at the road's edge tilted and fell. Hiden lay in a body-shaped crater, blinking, his jawbone visibly displaced. "Ow," he said. Kakuzu moved. His cloak burst open, 4 masked creatures detaching from his back, each one a stolen heart wrapped in black thread, each one opening its mouth to release an elemental attack. Fire, wind, lightning, earth. 4 simultaneous blasts aimed at Naruto from 4 different angles. Naruto's eyes glowed. Future sight mapped it all. 4 attacks, 4 trajectories, 4 hearts. He could see the sequence, which heart powered which attack, where each one was positioned behind the thread constructs, how fast Kakuzu could regenerate if a heart was destroyed. He moved. The fire blast hit Mochi, a wall that absorbed the heat and smoke but held. The wind blast hit a Haki-coated arm that split the air current down the middle. The lightning blast hit a Mochi gap in his torso and passed through nothing. The earth blast hit the ground beside him because he had already stepped left. 4 attacks, 0 contact. Naruto's right arm expanded. The fist grew, hardened, turned black. Kaki Mochi! He drove the first punch into the fire heart's thread construct. The fist hit the masked creature's center mass and the heart inside exploded, not from impact, from density. The armament Haki compressed the organ past its structural integrity. The thread construct collapsed into dead fibers. Kakuzu lurched. 1 heart down. Naruto was already moving. His left arm stretched across 20 feet and caught the wind heart by the mask. Squeezed. Kaki Mochi. The mask cracked. The heart ruptured. 2 hearts down. Kakuzu stumbled backward, threads whipping defensively around his remaining hearts. What? You can't possibly. The lightning heart fired a bolt. Naruto tilted his head. The bolt passed his ear close enough to singe the scarf. His right arm, already returning from the first strike, caught the lightning construct on the backswing. Kaki Mochi! 3. The earth heart burrowed underground, trying to flank. Naruto stomped. The road collapsed in a 10-foot radius, exposing the tunneling construct like flipping a rock to find the bug beneath. His foot, black, dense, heavier than stone, came down on the heart. Kaki Mochi! 4 hearts in 9 seconds. Kakuzu dropped to his knees. 1 heart left. The original. His body, held together by threads that suddenly felt insufficient, sagged. He looked up at the figure standing over him. 4 dead constructs scattered across the broken road. And for the first time in 90 years of violent life, Kakuzu felt the specific sensation of having been outmatched so completely that anger couldn't find a foothold. "You?" he rasped. "You have 1 heart remaining. I suggest you use it to stay still." Mochi encased Kakuzu from the neck down, dense, hardened, sealed with a thin layer of armament Haki at the surface that made escape through thread manipulation impossible. Behind Naruto, Hiden crawled out of his crater. His jaw had been reset. Immortality was useful that way, and he was already drawing a circle on the road with his own blood. "Lord Jashin's curse ritual. Once I have your blood, you'll feel every wound You will step left and try to cut me again," Naruto said, without turning around. Hiden froze. He looked at his feet. His left foot was already moving, already sliding leftward. His body was following the prediction like a train on rails. He stopped himself, stared at his own foot. Horror crawled across his features, not from pain or danger, but from the realization that someone had just read his body's intent before his mind had formed it. What are you?" Naruto turned. He walked toward Hiden, slowly, each step deliberate. Hiden swung his remaining blade. Naruto caught it between 2 fingers. Haki-coated black, the blade unable to bite through the density. He squeezed. The blade snapped. Mochi poured from Naruto's free hand and encased Hiden entirely, head to toe. A cocoon of hardened mochi that sealed the immortal inside a prison. His regeneration couldn't escape from, because there was nothing to regenerate from. Naruto turned back to the road. He walked to his rock. He sat down. He picked up his second donut and took a bite. Kakashi dropped from a tree branch. He had been following at distance, support, as Tsunade had ordered. He landed on the road between the 2 sealed Akatsuki members and looked at them, then at the fractured road, then at Naruto eating a donut on a rock. He pulled out his mission timer, checked it, put it away. 3 minutes and 47 seconds. The donuts added delay. Kakashi's eye crinkled. He was about to speak when the ambush squad arrived. 4 of them. Elite. Assigned as secondary backup. They dropped from the trees in perfect formation, weapons drawn, senses heightened for combat that had already ended. They saw Kakuzu, thread constructs dead and scattered, bodies sealed in mochi. They saw Hidan, immortal and furious, muffled, screaming from inside his cocoon. They saw the road, 50 feet of fractured earth. They saw the boy on the rock. The squad leader lowered his weapon. Then he sat down, right there, on the broken road, legs folded, weapon across his lap. He sat down the way a man sits down when the thing he has just witnessed has exceeded his operational framework and his legs have decided independently that standing is no longer a priority. Another Anbu member stared at the scene for 11 seconds, then quietly set his blade on the ground and pressed both hands against his mask. "What happened?" the third one asked, voice tight. Kakashi scratched the back of his head. "Naruto happened." The Anbu squad leader, still sitting, said nothing. He just watched the boy finish his donut. Months passed. Missions completed. Intelligence gathered. The Akatsuki's movements were tracked with increasing urgency. They were collecting tailed beasts, sealing them into a massive statue, building towards something that made every analyst in the 5 great nations nervous. Then pain came. The 6 paths of pain descended on Konoha on a morning. There was no warning that human senses could process. One moment the village existed as it had for generations, buildings standing, streets busy, the Hokage monument keeping watch. The next moment, the sky split. 6 figures dropped through the cloud cover like stones into still water. They landed at 6 points across the village, each impact sending shockwaves that shattered windows and cracked foundations. The Deva Path, the central body, the one with Yako's face and ringed purple eyes, hovered above the village center. It raised its hand. Shinra Tensei. The repulsive force detonated outward. Buildings didn't fall, they were erased. Entire blocks of the village flattened radially from the center point, structures compressing and scattering like a hand sweeping through a house of cards. The blast wave expanded for half a mile. Dust and debris filled the air. The screaming started. Shinobi responded. Kakashi engaged the Deva Path and was outmatched. Choza and Choji Akimichi fought the Asura Path and paid in blood. The Konoha barrier team attempted containment seals that the Prita Path absorbed. The village's defenses, built over generations, refined through wars, crumbled in minutes against 6 bodies sharing one mind and one set of godlike eyes. Tsunade poured her chakra into Katsuyu, the slug summon, splitting the creature into thousands of pieces that spread across the village to heal the wounded. She stood on the Hokage Tower roof and watched her village burn. "Where is he?" she whispered. "He was in the forest, 6 miles out. Returning from a mission, he felt it before he heard it. A tremor in future sight. Not a specific prediction, but a cascade of probability so violent that his vision flooded with ghost images. Destruction, death. The village flattened, bodies. He stopped running, he stopped breathing. Then he moved. Mochi Sage Mode activated mid-stride. The natural energy slammed into his body and the Mochi coating erupted across his skin, hardening and softening in alternating layers that turned him into a reactive surface of living material. His eyes shifted, sage pupils, sharp, the bar cutting through blue irises that glowed with the energy of a man whose body was now fused with the world itself. He covered 6 miles in 40 seconds. Trees bent in his wake. The ground cratered under each footstep. Birds evacuated in waves, the forest sensing the approach of something vast and fast and furious. He burst through the tree line at the village perimeter and saw the devastation. The flattened buildings, the crater where the center of Konoha had been, the dust and the fire, and the silence that follows catastrophic violence. He jumped from the forest edge to the center of the battlefield. A single leap, arcing over the ruins, his shadow cutting across the ground like a blade. He reached the apex of the jump and descended toward the impact zone where the Deva Path hovered above the wreckage. He landed. The shockwave from his landing radiated outward in a perfect circle. 3 buildings that had been leaning, damaged but standing, collapsed from the pressure wave alone. The ground beneath his feet compressed 6 inches. Dust exploded in every direction and was immediately flattened by his presence, as if the air itself had been told to make room. The 6 paths of pain turned toward him simultaneously. 6 bodies, 6 pairs of Rinnegan eyes, all locked on the figure standing in the center of the destruction, scarf whipping in the displaced air, sage-enhanced eyes glowing, the mochi coating on his body catching the light with a sheen that made him look forged rather than born. 6 bodies, 1 mind, 1 future. His voice carried across the ruins, low, even. The voice of someone describing a math problem he had already solved. The animal path raised its hand. A summon. A massive multi-headed dog erupted from smoke and charged, each head snarling, each one capable of multiplying if cut. Naruto's right arm expanded. The fist grew to 5 times its normal size, coated in armament haki, and swung horizontally. Zangiri Mochi! The fist connected with the summon. The dog didn't yelp, it decompressed. The force of the strike launched the massive creature across the ruins and through a section of the outer wall. The summon dissolved before it landed. The Asura path opened its body. Mechanical arms unfolding, missile-like projectiles loading from shoulder cavities, a face splitting apart to reveal a targeting array. It fired everything simultaneously. Naruto's torso opened. Mochi gaps appeared at every point of impact. 7 holes, perfectly sized, through which the projectiles passed without touching flesh. The missiles detonated behind him. He walked forward through the explosions. You are thinking about flanking me with the Preta path. It is approaching from my left. The Preta path lunged from behind a collapsed wall, hands outstretched, ready to absorb chakra on contact. Naruto turned his left arm into a pillar of mochi and caught the path by the wrist. The Preta path's absorption activated and stalled. The mochi wasn't standard chakra. It was physical, dense, saturated with sage energy. The absorption couldn't process it. The path's hand sank into the mochi and held there, useless. Naruto yanked the Preta path off its feet and drove it into the ground. Block mochi. The impact buried the path 3 feet into the rubble. Mochi sealed over the body, hardened, and held. 3 paths remaining. The Naraka path had retreated to resurrect the destroyed ones. The human path circled at distance. The Deva path hovered, watching. Naruto looked up at the Deva path. Shinra Tensei, the repulsive force slammed downward. Everything around Naruto erupted outward. Rubble, dust, broken walls, scattered weapons. The force that had flattened the village center hit Naruto's body and he walked through it. Armament haki coated his entire body. Full coverage, head to toe, black and dense and humming with so much concentrated force that the repulsion met a wall of equal density and broke around him. His feet pressed into the ground. His scarf flattened against his chest. But he moved forward, 1 step, 2, 3, walking through the divine repulsion of the Rinnegan like a man walking through heavy wind. The Deva path stared. From the ruins around the battlefield, surviving shinobi watched. Konoha Jonin, who had been pinned by Pain's assault, bleeding and exhausted, lifted their heads and saw a single figure advancing through the force that had destroyed their village. Walking, steady, unstoppable. That is impossible, the Deva path said. The words came from Nagato's mind through Yahiko's dead mouth. And they carried the confusion of a god who had just discovered a flaw in his theology. Naruto reached the base of the Deva path's hovering position. He looked up. Your future showed you something different? That must be frustrating. His right arm erupted upward, stretched, expanded, haki-coated. A pillar of black mochi that shot toward the hovering figure with the speed of a launched missile. The Deva path tried another Shinra Tensei. The repulsion hit the mochi arm and pushed it, bent it, but the arm curved around the force, stretched past it, and caught the Deva path by the ankle. Naruto pulled. The Deva path came down like a falling star. Naruto met it with a descending fist. Kaki mochi! The Deva path hit the ground with enough force to create a secondary crater inside the existing one. The body bounced. Naruto didn't let it bounce twice. Mochi surged from the impact point and sealed the Deva path against the earth. The human path charged from behind. Naruto's eyes read the approach without turning. You will reach for my head. You will try to extract my soul. He spun, caught the human path's outstretched hand in a mochi snare. Twisted. The arm broke at the elbow, a clean snap of reanimated joints. He drove an armament elbow into the path's chest and sent it carving a furrow through the rubble. The Naraka path had resurrected the animal path. The dog summon returned. Naruto didn't look at it. A single mochi tendril, haki hardened at the tip, shot from his shoulder and pierced the summon through the skull. It dissolved. Another tendril caught the Naraka path mid-resurrection and sealed it in a mochi cocoon before it could finish bringing back the Asura path. That is enough. 5 paths down, sealed, broken, or disabled. The Deva path, the last one moving, pushed against the mochi prison. Shinra Tensei charged, 5-second interval. Naruto watched the countdown through future sight. At 4 seconds, he hardened the mochi with full armament haki. The Shinra Tensei fired inside the cocoon. The repulsion met density it couldn't overcome. The force rebounded inward. The Deva path's body cracked from its own technique. 6 paths, 1 fight, under 4 minutes. Then the sky darkened. Nagato, from his hidden position miles away, poured everything into one final technique. The supreme power of the Rinnegan, the gravitational singularity, Chibaku Tensei. A black sphere materialized above the ruins of Konoha, small at first, the size of a fist. Then it pulled. The gravitational force was absolute, rubble lifted from the ground. Buildings, what remained of them, tore free from foundations. Trees uprooted. Boulders ripped from the earth, all of it spiraling upward toward the growing sphere, compressing, layering, building. The sphere grew and grew. Rock and earth and metal accumulating into a mass the size of a building, then a city block, then a hill, pulling everything toward it with the cold inevitability of a celestial body being born. Shinobi on the ground scrambled for handholds. Some were lifted. Kakashi, barely conscious, drove a kunai into the ground and held on. Sakura braced against a foundation beam, her feet leaving the earth. The sphere grew. It was casting a shadow across what remained of the village. A new moon being assembled from the corpse of a city. Naruto stood at the center of the pull. His feet were planted. The gravitational force dragged at him, his scarf whipping upward, debris streaming past his body. He leaned into it. His eyes swept the growing sphere. Future sight traced its structure, the core, the layers, the density distribution, the weak point at the gravitational center where Nagato's chakra held the mass together, awakening. It started at his feet. The ground around him stopped pulling toward the sphere and started changing. Stone became mochi. The transformation raced outward, 20 feet, 50 feet, 100. Every piece of debris caught in the gravitational pull that passed through Naruto's awakening zone changed composition. Rock became mochi. Metal became mochi. Soil, concrete, wood, all of it transforming mid-flight. The particles of the growing sphere converting from rigid mass to dense, malleable material that Naruto controlled. The sphere absorbed the converted debris and destabilized. Mochi is not rock. It doesn't compress the same way. It doesn't hold gravitational cohesion. The sections of the sphere that were now mochi began to shift, to stretch, to soften. The mass became uneven, half solid rock, half living mochi that responded to Naruto's will instead of Nagato's gravity. The sphere wobbled. Its rotation stuttered. Naruto jumped. From the ground to the sphere, a vertical leap powered by Sage Mode and mochi propulsion. He rocketed upward through the debris field, his body haki-coated and cutting through falling rock like a bullet through rain. He reached the sphere's surface, plunged into it, tore through layers of compressed earth and stone that his awakening converted to mochi as he passed through and reached the core. The black orb, Nagato's anchor, the gravitational heart of the technique. Naruto cocked his fist. Armament haki, sage enhancement. Mochi density compressed to its absolute limit. The fist was black and glowing and the air inside the sphere warped around it. Buzz cut mochi. He drove the punch into the core. The sphere detonated. It didn't collapse. It exploded, outward, every direction simultaneously. Thousands of tons of rock and mochi and debris scattering across the sky in a hail that spread for miles. The pieces, half of them converted to mochi by the awakening, fell soft, landing across the landscape like strange snow, coating the ground in a layer of clay-colored material that cushioned the impact of the stone fragments mixed within it. Naruto fell from the sky. He fell through the place where the sphere had been, through empty air and scattered dust and the disbelief of every living creature on the ground below. He turned mid-fall, extended a mochi platform beneath himself, landed on it, and rode it down to the battlefield. He stepped off the platform onto the ground, silence. Not the silence of an empty room, the silence of 1,000 people trying to process what they had just seen. The village, broken, burning, flattened, had just watched a single person detonate a gravitational singularity from the inside out. On a ridge overlooking the battlefield, Might Guy stood with tears streaming down his face. "The flames of youth," he whispered, and for once, nobody mocked the phrasing. Kakashi pulled his kunai out of the ground. He looked at the sky, at the space where a forming moon had been, at the boy standing in the crater below. "That's my student," he said, to no one, to himself, to the memory of Obito and Rin and Minato and everyone he'd ever lost. "That's my student." Sakura sat on the foundation beam, legs dangling, staring. Her medical training provided her with an understanding of force and physics and the limitations of the human body. Everything she had just witnessed violated all of it. Shikamaru, pulling himself out from under a piece of rubble, looked at the sky, looked at the ground and said, "I'm going back to bed." Naruto stood in the aftermath. His sage mode held. His awakening receded slowly, the terrain returning to its original state, mochi dissolving back into stone and earth. He looked toward the north, toward the origin point of Pain's control. He walked through the ruins, over the rubble, past shinobi who watched him pass with expressions that would never fully reset to normal. He walked out of the village, through the destroyed outer wall, and into the forest. He found Nagato, the real one, the withered, broken man in the mechanical walker, hidden in a hollow tree structure miles from the village. Konan stood beside him, paper wings folded, eyes hard. Nagato's Rinnegan eyes, the source of everything, stared at the approaching figure from a face that had been eaten away by years in jutsu and the cost of playing God. Naruto stopped 10 feet away. He looked at Nagato for a long time. The silence between them held the weight of a destroyed village and every body in it. "You wanted to show the world pain so it would stop hurting each other." Nagato's eyes flickered. "I wanted that peace, real peace, the kind that only comes when everyone understands suffering equally. That is the logic of someone who has never actually protected anything." The words landed like stones in still water. Nagato's face contorted. Anger, grief, defiance. The expression of a man who had believed in his righteousness for decades and was hearing, for the first time, the simplest possible refutation. "You know nothing of my pain. I know everything about your pain. You lost your parents, your best friend, your country. You were a child of war. So was I. The difference between us is not what we suffered. It is what we chose to become because of it." Nagato stared. Naruto's hands moved. Mochi poured from his palms, dense, hockey-laced interlocking layers that wrapped around Nagato's frame, each layer compressed, hardened, sealed. Konan lunged forward, paper shuriken forming in her hands. Naruto's eyes moved to her. One look. The weight of everything he had just done, the 6 paths, the Chibaku Tensei, the walk through divine repulsion, compressed into a single glance. Konan stopped. Her paper fell from the air. The mochi cocoon sealed around Nagato completely, dense enough that no chakra bled through. Armament haki at every surface. A prison that the Rinnegan could not escape because the material was too dense to repulse and too unique to absorb. Nagato stared through the narrowing gap in the mochi. "You won't kill me? Killing you would be easy. Living with what you've done is harder. I am giving you the harder path." The mochi sealed shut. Naruto carried the cocoon back to the village on one shoulder. He walked through the ruined gates, past the debris and the fires and the shinobi who parted before him, and dropped the sealed body at Tsunade's feet. The Hokage stood in the rubble of her village, Katsuyu's fragments still healing the wounded around her. She looked at the mochi cocoon, at the boy standing over it. He lives, but he is done. Tsunade looked at the cocoon. She looked at Naruto. She looked at her destroyed village and the sky where a moon had almost formed. "Thank you," she said. He nodded once and walked away. Konan watched from the shadows at the village perimeter. She looked at the sealed body of the man she had followed for half her life. She looked at the boy walking away from it. She folded her paper wings. She left. Konoha rebuilt. It always rebuilt. The will of fire was a concept that expressed itself in hammers and nails and the stubborn refusal of a people to stay broken. Within months, the village was rising from its own rubble. New buildings on old foundations, new streets over old scars. Then word came from the 5 Kage summit. Sasuke had gone off the rails. Fully, completely. He had formed a team, Taka, drawn from Orochimaru's former associates, and was hunting Danzo Shimura, the shadow of Konoha, the architect of the Uchiha massacre's cover-up. Sasuke had attacked the summit itself. The Raikage had lost a hand. Kage were furious Naruto attended the summit, not as a Kage, not as a diplomat, as himself. He walked into the summit chamber, a round room, high ceiling designed to hold the 5 most powerful leaders in the shinobi world, and stood at the edge of the table. The Raikage A was already on his feet. The man was a wall of muscle wrapped in lightning, his remaining arm crackling with the Raita no Yoroi. His brother Killer B had been targeted by Akatsuki. His hand had been lost to Sasuke's Amaterasu. He was not in a diplomatic mood. The Uchiha is a threat to every nation. He attacked this summit. He will be eliminated. I will handle Sasuke. 5 words. Naruto said them without raising his voice, without changing his posture. He stood at the edge of the table, arms in his sleeves, scarf high, and spoke 5 words that cut through the Raikage's fury like a blade through smoke. The room went silent. The Raikage turned toward him. Full height, 6'7", 260 pounds of combat-hardened muscle backed by the fastest lightning release in the shinobi world. He stared down at the scarf-wearing teenager who had just told him to stand down. Nobody tells me. Naruto looked at him. That was all. He looked at the Raikage. He didn't flare his chakra. He didn't activate Sage Mode. He didn't expand his mochi or harden his haki. He just looked at him. The lightning around A's body flickered, stuttered, died. The Raikage sat back down. His hand gripped the armrest. His jaw worked silently. His body had overruled his pride, and neither of them understood why. His muscles had simply received information that his brain hadn't. Information from something old and deep, the same instinct that tells prey animals which predator is beyond them. Mei Terumi, the Mizukage, studied Naruto from across the table. Onoki, the Tsuchikage, hovered in his chair, eyes narrow. Gaara, now Kazekage, the boy from the bridge, the former monster who had been handed a donut and a second chance, sat with his hands folded and the faintest smile. I trust him, Gaara said. The room turned to the youngest Kage. He has already brought Sasuke back once. He will do it again. The summit ended with unofficial authorization. Naruto was given operational clearance to intercept and retrieve Sasuke Uchiha. Not because anyone in that room trusted him, but because everyone understood that telling him he couldn't go would accomplish exactly nothing. He found Sasuke before Danzo did. A forest clearing between the land of iron and fire country. Taka, Suigetsu, Karen Jugo had been left behind. Sasuke stood alone, Mangekyou Sharingan blazing, Susanoo partially formed, a rib cage of purple chakra surrounding his body, the first stage of the technique that would become his ultimate weapon. Naruto landed in the clearing. Sasuke's Susanoo flared. The ribcage expanded, forming arms, a skull, the spectral warrior growing to full size, 20 feet tall, wreathed in dark chakra, a sword of black flame materializing in its grip. Move, Naruto. No. Awakening. The clearing transformed. Every tree, every rock, every blade of grass within 200 meters converted to mochi. The terrain became Naruto's body, responsive and alive and densely woven with armament haki at every surface. The Susanoo stood on mochi ground. Its feet sank 3 inches. Mochi tendrils erupted from every direction. They wrapped around the Susanoo's arms, its legs, its sword. Thick cables of haki-hardened mochi, dozens of them, pulling from every angle simultaneously. Sasuke's Susanoo swung its sword. Tendrils severed and regrew instantly. The awakened terrain fed the constructs faster than they could be destroyed. More tendrils, from below, from above, wrapped tightening. The Susanoo strained. Purple chakra flared against black mochi. The clearing shook. Not today. The mochi cocoon closed around the Susanoo before it could reach full stabilization. Layer upon layer, compressing, hardening, sealing the spectral warrior inside a shell so dense that the purple glow dimmed, flickered, and died. Inside the dissolving Susanoo, Sasuke screamed. You don't understand. Itachi, what they did to him. What Danzo ordered. The Uchiha, my family. They were murdered by their own village and nobody. I know what Itachi did. Sasuke stopped screaming. I know what was done to him. I know the order came from Danzo. I know the third Hokage allowed it. I know Itachi died carrying a burden that should have been shared by every leader in Konoha. The mochi hold loosened, enough for Sasuke to breathe, enough for him to see Naruto's eyes through a gap in the cocoon. That does not make the bodies you are making acceptable. Sasuke's Mangekyo spun. Amaterasu, the black flames erupted from his left eye, aimed at the mochi surrounding him. The flames caught, burning the mochi, the fire spreading. The mochi burned and regrew. The awakened terrain fed replacement material faster than Amaterasu consumed it. The black flames ate mochi and mochi replaced itself and the cocoon held. Sasuke's chakra flickered, dimmed. The Mangekyo bled. Tears of blood ran from his eyes. I hate you, Sasuke whispered. I hate that you're always right. I am not always right. I am always here. The mochi cocoon softened, released. Sasuke dropped to the ground on his knees, Mangekyo deactivating, body spent. Naruto stood over him. Come home, Sasuke. Sasuke said nothing for a very long time. The clearing was quiet. Mochi dissolved around them. Trees returned to being trees. He stood, shaking, exhausted. Blood on his face from the Mangekyo's cost. He walked toward Konoha. Naruto walked beside him. They arrived at the gates together, again. The second time, the village muttered. Whispers in doorways, glances exchanged on rooftops. The Uchiha problem, the Uchiha return. The boy who kept dragging him back, Kakashi met them at the gate. He looked at Sasuke, at the blood, at the resignation. He said nothing. He just watched. Sakura was there. She exhaled, a long, slow breath that she had been holding, it seemed, for weeks, maybe months, maybe since the day she'd watched Sasuke walk away the first time. He's back, she said. He is back. Naruto confirmed. No more needed to be said. The Fourth Great Ninja War began on a morning that smelled like rain. The allied shinobi forces, leaf, sand, mist, stone, cloud, formed the largest military coalition in recorded history. Over 80,000 shinobi organized into divisions, each one led by commanders chosen from the 5 great nations. The enemy, Obito Uchiha, operating under the name Madara, commanding a white Zetsu army grown from the cells of the first Hokage. 100,000 artificial soldiers, and behind them, the threat of the actual Madara Uchiha. Reanimated and waiting, Naruto was deployed to the front. His presence on a battlefield was not a tactical asset. It was a strategic one. The allied commanders understood this. General Gaara, leading the 4th Division, positioned Naruto at the spearhead of the advance, the tip of the formation, the first thing the enemy would see. The first engagement was the white Zetsu horde. They came through the forest like a pale flood. Thousands of them, each one wearing the face of someone else, each one capable of mimicking chakra signatures. They moved in waves, overwhelming through sheer numbers, each individual weak but the mass lethal. Naruto walked into them. Future Sight and Sage Mode read the entire field. Every white Zetsu within 300 meters existed in his vision as a probability cloud. Their next step, their next swing, their next breath, all mapped in overlapping layers of ghost images. He saw the battlefield 4 minutes ahead, every position, every cluster, every gap. He raised both hands, Mochitsuki. Mochi erupted from the ground. The awakened terrain spread across the battlefield in a wave, the forest floor converting to dense, sticky material that grabbed white Zetsu feet and held. Tendrils rose from every surface, snaring bodies, binding limbs, pulling the artificial soldiers into the ground like quicksand made of dessert. Simultaneously, from above, Chikara Mochi, fists, dozens of them, building-sized, haki-coated, dropping from floating mochi rings that hung in the air like a judgment being delivered. Each fist crashed into a cluster of white Zetsus with impacts that shook the earth and cratered the terrain. The sound was thunder without lightning, rolling, continuous, overwhelming. The field was cleared in minutes. Allied commanders watched from the rear. General Darui, leading the 1st Division, lowered his binoculars. It looks like a god walked through. Shikamaru, serving as tactical advisor, studied the aftermath through his own glass. The field was covered in mochi-cased white Zetsu bodies, hundreds of them, immobilized, sorted almost neatly into the terrain like specimens pressed into resin. That is exactly what it looks like, Shikamaru said. On a medical ridge behind the front lines, Anko Mitarashi sat on an ammunition crate. She was attached to the Alliance medical units as a combat advisor. Her expertise in curse marks and Orochimaru's techniques made her valuable for triage of contaminated wounds. She held a dango stick between her teeth and watched the distant field through the smoke and dust. She watched him work, the fists dropping, the field clearing. The figure at the center of it all, scarf whipping, moving through an army like the army was weather and he was geography. She bit into her dango, chewed, completely calm. She had always known what he was. The war continued. Battles across multiple fronts, divisions pushing forward, falling back, pushing again. Naruto moved between fronts as needed, a one-man reinforcement that could shift the tide of any engagement simply by arriving. Then Madara Uchiha arrived. The reanimation landed on the eastern front like a comet. The earth fractured from the impact. A crater 20 feet wide and 8 feet deep marked the point of contact. Dust erupted in a column that rose 100 feet. When it settled, a figure stood at the center. Tall, armored, hair reaching past his waist. He wore the regalia of a dead era and the expression of a man who had never been impressed by anything and did not intend to start. Madara Uchiha, the ghost of the Uchiha, co-founder of Konoha, the man who had fought Hashirama Senju to a standstill and controlled the Nine Tails like a pet. He surveyed the battlefield. The Allied forces saw him and the front line broke. Immediately. Irrevocably. Jonin, who had survived the previous engagements, combat veterans, hardened killers, looked at the figure in the crater and their courage simply left. Some froze, some stepped back, some ran. Not out of cowardice, but out of the same instinct that moves animals away from earthquakes. The body's recognition of an event-level threat, cage-level fighters took a step back. The third Raikage's reanimation had been bad enough. Mu, the second Tsuchikage, had been worse. But this was the name that other names were measured against. The legend at the top of every list. Madara stood in his crater and breathed in the smell of war. He had not smelled it in decades. He found that he had missed it. This era is soft, he said. His voice carried, not through chakra amplification, but through the sheer density of his presence. Let me harden it. His hands formed seals. Above the battlefield, the sky changed. Two shadows appeared in the upper atmosphere. Distant at first, dark shapes against the clouds, easy to mistake for cloud formations or weather phenomena. Then the shapes grew, rapidly, because they were falling. Two meteors, stone and fire and compressed fury, each one the size of a small mountain, trailing plumes of flame and vaporized air as they descended through the atmosphere. The sky above the battlefield turned orange, then red, then the color of an open furnace. The air temperature spiked. Shadows twisted and multiplied as two suns fell. The first meteor's shadow reached the battlefield. It covered everything. Half a mile of allied forces, thousands of shinobi, stood in the darkness of a falling mountain and looked up. Onoki, the Tsuchikage, tried. The old man flew upward, his dust release charging, his lightened body straining toward the descending rock. His fist struck the surface and the particle style fired, a cone of molecular deconstruction that ate into the meteor's face. A divot, a chip, nothing. The mass was too great, the fall too fast, the technique too small against a mountain. Gaara's sand surged upward, a wall, a dome, a futile attempt to cushion what couldn't be cushioned. The sand met the meteor's leading edge and compressed, flattened, broke. On the ground, shinobi screamed. Some ran, most stood frozen. The shadow was absolute, the heat was rising, a deep tectonic roar, built until it filled the world. Naruto was already moving. He had been moving since Madara's hands started forming the seal. Future sight had shown him the meteors 4 seconds before they appeared. 4 seconds was an eternity. Mochi Sage mode at full power. Awakening, activating as he ran, the ground beneath his feet, converting to Mochi, and launching him upward on a pillar that rose from the battlefield like a geyser of clay. He rocketed skyward, past the sand, past Onoki. The old Tsuchikage glimpsing a blur of scarf and black-coated limbs shooting past him faster than his old eyes could track. The first meteor filled his vision. Above it, the second. 2 mountains, burning, falling. He hit the first meteor at 1,000 feet, both palms forward. Full armament Haki, full Sage enhancement. His body coated in the densest mochi he had ever produced, layers of compressed, Haki-infused material that turned his hands into surfaces harder than anything in the natural world. Kaki mochi, maximum output. He pushed. The meteor was 1,000,000 tons of stone and iron falling at terminal velocity. Naruto's hands met its surface, and the collision produced a sound that existed outside the normal range of human hearing. A bass tone so deep it was felt in the chest cavity rather than heard. A vibration that made the air itself shudder. He pushed. His arms sank into the meteor's face. Mochi expanded from the points of contact, spreading across the rock surface, converting stone to material he could manipulate. His feet braced against hardened mochi platforms he created behind himself, each one thick enough to hold the force. The sage energy in his body surged, natural energy from the world itself feeding into his muscles, his mochi, his will. The meteor's trajectory bent, not stopped, bent, like a hand deflecting a thrown ball. The massive stone shifted, 2 degrees, 3-5, the angle increasing as Naruto poured everything into the push. His scarf tore free from the wind pressure. His sleeves shredded, his teeth bared, the full, horrifying mouth of pointed fangs visible against the light of the burning sky, and for once he did not care. The meteor passed over the battlefield. It continued its altered course, descending at the new angle, dropping toward the eastern forest 2 miles from the Allied position. It hit. The impact was geological. The forest ignited in a circle 3 miles wide. The ground shook with the force of a localized earthquake that registered on instruments across the continent. A mushroom cloud of dust and fire and vaporized wood rose into the sky. The shock wave hit the battlefield 4 seconds later and knocked every standing shinobi off their feet. Every shinobi except one. Naruto dropped from where the first meteor had been. He caught himself on a mochi platform. The second meteor was closer now, 200 meters above the battlefield and closing, bigger than the first. The heat from it was blistering. He launched, straight up, into the descending mountain, armament haki at full density, his entire body black and hardened to the point where the air around him distorted from the pressure. He met the meteor head-on. Buzz-cut mochi, vertical, his right fist, expanded to 10 times its normal size, coated in blazing haki, the surface friction igniting the mochi into actual flame, drove into the meteor's underside. He punched through it, through the outer shell, through 100 feet of compressed stone, through the iron core, through the upper surface. His fist exited the top of the meteor, and the force of his passage fractured the entire structure along the axis of his punch. The fracture lines spread, branched. The meteor held for 1 second, a frozen moment where a mountain hung in the air with a fist-sized hole through its center. Then it shattered. The meteor broke into 10,000 pieces. The fragments scattered across the sky, smaller stones, gravel, dust, spreading in every direction, losing their concentrated mass, their killing density reduced to harmless debris that rained across miles of empty countryside. Naruto hung in the sky for a moment, suspended at the apex of his punch, above the place where the meteor had been, silhouetted against a sun that was visible again because the mountains were gone. He fell, descent through clear air. The battlefield below him, the crater from his launch. The scattered shinobi picking themselves up from the shockwave. He landed on the field. The impact was controlled, mochi cushioning beneath his feet, absorbing the kinetic energy of the drop. He stood straight, rolled his right shoulder, which ached from punching through a mountain. Every allied shinobi on the battlefield was looking at him. Every single one. 80,000 people. Shinobi from 5 nations, trained from childhood to maintain composure, to suppress fear, to fight without flinching. 80,000 pairs of eyes fixed on the figure standing in the center of the field, scarf gone, teeth exposed, arms steaming from the friction of stone and haki. Silence. Then someone cheered. One voice, from the back of the formation. A single, ragged, breaking cry that might have been a scream or a sob or a prayer. Then another. Then another. Then the entire battlefield erupted in a sound that wasn't quite cheering and wasn't quite weeping. It was the sound of people who had just watched 2 mountains fall and one person catch them, and the only response their bodies could produce was noise. On the ridge, Gaara stood with sand still settling around him. His eyes were wet. He did not wipe them. Kakashi stood with both hands pressed against his masked face. He was breathing, deliberate pattern of a man preventing himself from losing composure in front of 80,000 soldiers. Might Guy was crying openly and doing push-ups. Nobody questioned this. The 5 Kage, scattered across the battlefield's command positions, each had their own reaction. The Raikage's lightning armor flared involuntarily. The Mizukage's hand was over her mouth. The Tsuchikage, lowering back to the ground from his failed attempt, stared at the boy who had done in 8 seconds what his particle style could not. Gaara closed his eyes and smiled. Anko, on her medical ridge, bit into a fresh dango stick. Her hands were shaking. She didn't let anyone see. On the battlefield, Madara Uchiha looked at the sky where his meteors had been. One word. Interesting. The word carried no anger, no frustration, no dramatic fury. It was the response of a man who had dropped 2 mountains on a battlefield and watched a single opponent catch them both. It was the highest form of acknowledgement Madara Uchiha had ever given to anyone who was not named Hashirama. Naruto turned to face him. You dropped 2 mountains. I caught them. Now it is my turn. Madara's lips curved beneath the cracks of his reanimated face. Something that might have been a smile. Something that might have been hunger. Come then. Naruto moved first. The ground beneath his feet converted to mochi, awakening spreading outward in a radius that consumed the battlefield's terrain. Madara felt the change beneath his sandals and leapt upward. His hands blurred through seals, fire release of a scale that turned the air into a furnace. A wall of flame swept across the awakened ground, incinerating mochi, scorching earth, turning the field into a hellscape of fire and steam. Naruto walked through it, armament haki at full coverage. The flames licked his surface and slid off, the density too great for fire to penetrate. He emerged from the inferno like something born in it. Madara's eyes spun. The eternal Mangekyo Sharingan 3-point pinwheel, each blade carrying the weight of eras. Susanoo activated. The spectral warrior materialized around him in stages. Ribcage, arms, skull, full body. It grew and grew. The Rikudo-empowered Susanoo, the perfect form, the one that rivaled the tailed beasts in scale and power. 100 feet tall, blue-white and burning. A blade in its grip that could split mountains, because it had. The Susanoo swung its blade. The air screamed. The horizontal arc cut a line across the battlefield that would have bisected a city block. Naruto planted his feet. Mochi-tsuki! Mochi erupted from the awakened ground. A wall, then a dome, then a mountain of dense material that rose to meet the Susanoo's blade. The blade hit the mochi and cut. Of course it cut. It was the weapon of a god-tier entity. But the mochi regenerated around the cut, sealing behind the blade as it passed, robbing the swing of its follow-through. The Susanoo pulled its blade free with a wet, sucking sound. Mochi clung to the spectral steel in ropes of dense, sticky material. Naruto pressed the advantage. Mochi constructs rows from the awakened terrain, pillars, fists, walls, slamming into the Susanoo from every direction. The spectral warrior swatted them, broke them. Each one regenerated. The awakened terrain fed the constructs faster than the Susanoo could destroy them. Madara's eyes narrowed. He increased the Susanoo's output. The spectral warrior blazed brighter, its form solidifying, its blade cutting faster. But for every construct it destroyed, 3 more rose. This was the nature of the awakening. Within its radius, Naruto was the terrain. He was the ground, the walls, the air itself. Destroying his constructs was like trying to drain the ocean with a bucket. Madara, for the first time, committed fully. The Susanoo's blade ignited with Amaterasu, black flames coating the spectral weapon, burning through the mochi with unstoppable fire. The constructs that rose were cut and burned simultaneously. Naruto bled. A fragment of the Susanoo's blade, wreathed in Amaterasu, passed through a regenerating mochi wall and grazed his left shoulder. The flesh beneath the mochi coating opened, a 6-inch cut that welled with blood, real blood, red and mortal. Allied shinobi watching from the perimeter saw it. The collective intake of breath was audible. He had bled. The boy who had caught 2 meteors was bleeding. Naruto looked at the cut, at the blood running down his arm. He had not bled in combat since the Valley of the End. 3 years, countless battles. One man had managed it. He looked at Madara through the Susanoo's shining armor. The reanimated legend looked back through spectral eyes. "You are strong," Naruto said. A genuine assessment, not condescension, not surprise. Recognition from one apex to another. Then he escalated. Mochi Sage mode at its absolute peak. The natural energy surging into his body tripled, the transformation pushing past previous limits, his skin taking on a deeper orange hue, the sage bars in his pupils widening. The mochi coating thickened, hardened, became something between substance and concept. Chikara Mochi, Meteor Fist. Above the battlefield, in the sky that had been cleared of meteors, something formed. A fist. Not the training ground-sized fists from the Chunin exams. not the building-sized fists from the White Zetsu engagement. This was something else. A construct so massive that it cast its own shadow, a mochi fist the size of a city block, ringed with floating mochi constructs, every surface haki-coated to the point of visual distortion, the air around it warping from the density. Sage energy infused every molecule. The fist glowed, orange and black, nature's power and human will compressed into a single descending impact. It fell. Madara's Susanoo braced. The spectral warrior raised its Amaterasu-coated blade in a two-handed guard, the blade that had cut mountains, the defense that had turned aside armies. The Meteor fist hit the Susanoo. The ground beneath the impact caved in 40 feet, a perfect circle of compressed earth forced downward by the sheer weight of the collision. The shockwave traveled outward, not in a ring, but in a sphere, the pressure expanding in every direction simultaneously. Shinobi a mile away were knocked off their feet. Windows in towns 3 miles distant shattered. Seismographs across the continent registered the impact. The Susanoo's blade shattered. The Amaterasu flickered and died. The spectral warrior's guard buckled, the arms breaking first, then the shoulders, then the ribcage cracking in lines that spread like fractures in ice. The Meteor fist drove through. The Susanoo's armor collapsed. The spectral ribcage disintegrated. The head cracked. The entire spectral form, the ultimate defense of the most powerful Uchiha who had ever lived, broke apart and dissolved into motes of blue-white chakra that scattered on the wind like dying stars. Madara Uchiha stood in the 40-foot crater, unshielded for the first time in the battle, and looked at the broken fragments of his Susanoo dissolving around him. He said nothing. The silence was more eloquent than any words could have been. Madara Uchiha, who had spoken his way through every battle with the arrogance of a man who had never been seriously challenged, looked at his shattered defense and found that language had failed him. Naruto stood at the crater's edge, breathing hard, his left shoulder bleeding, his mochi coating cracked and regenerating, his eyes steady. "You are a legend, Madara, but legends end." Madara looked up, the reanimated face, cracked and reforming because Edo Tensei didn't allow permanent damage, showed something it had never shown before: respect, pure, unfiltered respect. The kind that one mountain gives another. Then the Edo Tensei's regeneration kicked in and Madara reformed, ready for another round. Because that was the cruelty of the technique. The dead could not stay down. Naruto sealed him. Layer upon layer of awakened mochi, haki hardened, sage infused, wrapping the regenerating body in a prison that reformed as fast as Madara did. The reanimated legend thrashed inside the cocoon. Each time his body regenerated, the mochi adjusted, compressed, held. It would hold until the Edo Tensei itself was released. Naruto turned from the cocoon. He pressed a hand against his bleeding shoulder. The mochi sealed the wound, staunching the flow. It would scar. He walked off the field. Behind him, 80,000 allied shinobi stared at the cocoon, the crater, and the retreating figure. Some cheered again. Some wept. Most simply stood and felt the weight of what they had witnessed settle into the part of the brain where impossible things are stored. Then the sky tore open. The 10 tails emerged. Obito Uchiha, the real architect of the war, released it. The beast erupted from the earth with a sound that existed below human hearing. A vibration that was felt in the marrow, in the blood, in the primal part of the brain that remembered what it was like to be prey. The 10 tails was not a creature. It was a catastrophe given form. A mass of tails and mouths and rage, towering above the battlefield like a natural disaster that had learned to hate. The sky tore. The clouds scattered. The sun dimmed behind the beast's rising form. Naruto felt Kurama stir. The 9 tails had been quiet for most of the story. A presence behind the seal, watching, waiting, a being of immense power contained in a cage that had been redesigned by the boy it was sealed within. Kurama's chakra hummed, a deep bass vibration that resonated with Naruto's mochi the way a tuning fork resonates with its matched frequency. "You already know what I'm going to say." The voice came from inside. Deep, ancient, the voice of a creature that had existed since before nations had names. "Yes," Naruto said. "Then you know what we have to do." "Yes." There was no dramatic breakthrough, no tearful reconciliation, no moment where the beast and the boy stared into each other's eyes and found common ground through shared pain. Kurama and Naruto had always understood each other. The cage was a formality between two beings who had shared a body for 16 years and knew, with the clarity of long coexistence, what the other was. They merged. Kurama mode activated. Orange chakra erupted from Naruto's body like a sunrise compressed into human form. The chakra cloak formed, the bipedal fox shape, towering, burning with tailed beast power. But this was different. This was layered, mochi awakening fused with the chakra cloak. The orange energy was threaded with veins of dense, dark mochi that hardened at the surface, creating armor plating across the Kurama avatar. Sage mode layered on top of that, natural energy saturating every molecule, the horizontal bar pupils forming within the burning eyes of the fox-shaped construct. 3 layers. Kurama, mochi, sage. The form was unlike anything the shinobi world had seen. Naruto stood at the center of a Kurama avatar that was taller than the Hokage Tower, armored in haki-hardened mochi, glowing with sage energy, ringed with floating mochi constructs the size of buildings. The tails, 9 of them, each one wrapped in spiraling mochi that extended their reach and density, swept the air behind him. The 10 tails roared. The sound wave leveled everything within a mile. Trees disintegrated. The ground peeled back like skin from a wound. Allied shinobi who hadn't retreated far enough were thrown backward, saved only by the chakra barriers the rear guard had erected. Naruto answered. He did not roar. He stepped forward, 1 step from the Kurama avatar, and the ground beneath it compressed 3 feet. The second step sent shockwaves through the battlefield. The third brought him within range. The 10 tails opened its mouth. The chakra gathering in its maw was visible, a sphere of compressed power, red and black, and dense enough to distort the air around it. A Bijudama, the tailed beast bomb, the single most destructive technique in the shinobi arsenal. It fired. The Bijudama crossed the distance between them in under a second, a sphere of annihilation aimed at the Kurama avatar's chest. On contact, it would detonate with the force of a nuclear weapon. Naruto caught it. The Kurama avatar's hands, haki-coated mochi over orange chakra, closed around the sphere. The Bijudama pushed. The avatar's feet slid backward, carving furrows in the earth. The mochi coating absorbed the surface energy, compressed the sphere's expansion, held it. Naruto squeezed. The Bijudama compressed, shrank. The destructive energy contained within a shell of mochi and haki could not expand. The sphere dimmed, collapsed into a dense marble of compressed chakra sitting in the avatar's palm. He hurled it back. The compressed Bijudama hit the 10 tails in the chest. The detonation was contained within the beast's own mass, a miniature sun igniting inside its torso, the explosion ripping outward through flesh and chakra and hatred. The beast screamed. It staggered. Another Bijudama formed in its mouth. Fired. Naruto caught it. Compressed. Returned. A third. Caught. Compressed. Returned. The 10 tails changed tactics. All 10 tails whipped forward simultaneously, each one the size of a river, dense with chakra, aimed at the Kurama avatar from every angle. Naruto's own tails met them. 9 against 10. Each mochi-wrapped tail grappling with a 10 tails appendage, the force of the collision shaking the earth beneath them. The 9th tail was outnumbered, but the awakened terrain compensated. Mochi pillars erupting from the ground beneath the 10th tail, catching it, binding it, holding it in place. The 2 beasts grappled. The sky above them turned colors, orange and red and black, the chakra output from both sides painting the atmosphere like a sunset happening all at once. Naruto pushed. The Kurama avatar drove forward, each step compressing the ground. The mochi constructs floating around the avatar launched, building-sized fists, haki-coated, slamming into the 10 tails from above and below, driving the beast backward. Chikara mochi, fist after fist, impact after impact. The 10 tails buckled, its legs gave, its body listed. Then Naruto wrapped it. Mochi poured from the avatar's body, from the awakened terrain, from every surface within the awakening's radius. A tidal wave of dense, haki-hardened, sage-infused mochi that engulfed the 10 tails from every direction. The beast thrashed, its tails whipped. Bijudama fired inside the forming cocoon and detonated against mochi walls that absorbed the force and redistributed it. The cocoon grew, thickened, hardened, layer upon layer, each one denser than the last, each one laced with armament haki at the surface and sage energy in the matrix. The 10 tails' roars grew muffled, its movements slowed. The mochi compressed around it like the world's largest straitjacket, the cocoon sealed, A mass the size of a small city sat on the battlefield, a dome of hardened mochi, dark with haki, humming with contained fury. Inside, the ten-tails raged, the ground shook, the cocoon vibrated. Cracks appeared and sealed themselves, the awakened material regenerating from the terrain below. It held. The ten-tails pushed, the earth shook, the cocoon flexed, it held. Obito Uchiha stood on a ridge overlooking the sealed beast. His mask was cracked. His Mangekyo Sharingan spun behind the fragments. He stared at the mochi prison. His weapon had been locked inside. That is impossible. That beast cannot be. Naruto, stepping out of the dissolving Kurama avatar, his body steaming, his scarf destroyed, his teeth bared to the open air, looked at Obito across the battlefield. I saw this before the battle started. I built the seal structure in my mind 3 hours ago. Obito had nothing to say. His mouth opened. His jaw worked. No words emerged. The man who had planned a war, who had manipulated nations, created armies, released the most powerful being in existence, stood in silence because the boy across the field had already seen the ending before the first chapter started. The aftermath was a blur of action and containment. Obito, stripped of the 10 tails, was a wounded animal, dangerous but diminished. Kakashi engaged him, their old rivalry, their shared history, their matching Sharingan. It was their fight, and Naruto let them have it. When it ended, when Kakashi stood over his former teammate's broken body, when the mask crumbled away to reveal the face of the boy who had once been his best friend, Naruto walked over. Obito looked up at him. The Mangekyo was dull. The ambition was gone. What remained was a man who had lost a girl he loved 20 years ago and had spent every year since trying to unmake a world that had taken her. You chose this path because you lost someone you loved, Naruto said. I understand that. I will not excuse what you became. He sealed Obito. Clean, fast, mochi cocoon, haki hardened, the same technique he'd used on Nagato and Kakuzu and every other opponent who deserved to live with what they'd done rather than escape through death. Kakashi watched the ceiling. His hand rested on the cocoon for a moment. Then he stepped back. Then Kaguya was released. Black Zetsu, the creature that had been pulling strings since before recorded history, manipulated the infinite Tsukuyomi, manipulated Madara's unsealed form, manipulated everything to bring back the progenitor of chakra. Kaguya Otsutsuki descended into the world like something from a mythology too old for language. White hair, third eye, the Sharingan, reality bent around her like paper around flame. She was beyond human measure, beyond tailed beasts, beyond the framework that shinobi power systems could describe. Naruto and Sasuke faced her together. The Six Paths technique, the sealing power granted by the Sage of Six Paths himself, required both of them, sun and moon. The marks on their palms burned. They fought her across dimensions, through the ice world, through the lava world, through the gravity dimension that tried to crush them flat. Kaguya's power was absolute, bone ash bullets that disintegrated anything they touched, dimensional shifts that changed the battlefield every 30 seconds. The Sharingan's genjutsu pressing against their minds, Naruto held the line. His awakening converted the terrain of every dimension they entered. Ice became mochi, lava became mochi, the surface of the gravity world became mochi. Kaguya found that every battlefield was his battlefield, but she was too powerful for him alone. Her bone ash pierced his mochi. Her dimensional shifts disrupted his awakening. For the first time in the entire war, Naruto acknowledged a truth his future sight had shown him from the start. Sasuke, the Uchiha, looked at him, Rinnegan blazing, eternal Mangekyo spinning in the other eye. He was battered, bleeding, running on fury and Indra's inherited power. Together. Sasuke's jaw tightened, then it loosened. He nodded. They moved in tandem, for the first time fully. Two brothers, one standing on power built over 2 lifetimes, one standing on a fury forged in genocide and shaped by loss, working as one. Naruto created the openings. Sasuke exploited them. Naruto trapped Kaguya's limbs in mochi. Sasuke's Chidori pierced her defenses. Naruto's future sight called the dimensional shifts. Sasuke's Rinnegan followed the calls. They sealed her. The Six Paths technique activated when both palms touched her body simultaneously. The seal formed, massive, intricate, a compression of reality that folded Kaguya back into the dimension from which she'd come. The Sharingan closed. The white hair vanished. The progenitor of chakra was returned to her prison. They stood in the wreckage of another dimension, exhausted, broken, standing only because falling would require more energy than staying upright. Sasuke looked at Naruto. "You saw this outcome?" Naruto met his eyes. "I saw a possible outcome. You made it the real one." Sasuke said nothing, but he held the gaze. And for the first time since the academy, since the valley, since every competition and resentment and burning need to prove himself, he held it without looking away. The dimension folded, reality restored. They returned to the battlefield, where the infinite Tsukuyomi was unraveling and the cocoons holding the world's population were dissolving. Sakura met them. She healed what she could. The war was ending. Then Sasuke turned. "I'm going to become Hokage." Naruto looked at him. The statement hung in the air, deceptively simple, but the weight behind it, the intention, the plan, was anything but. "I will become Hokage by force. I will take the tailed beasts. I will end the Kage system. I will unite the world under one authority, mine, and I will ensure that war never happens again. Not through understanding, through control." Sakura's face drained of color. Kakashi, arriving behind them, went still. Naruto looked at Sasuke for a long time. The future sight showed him the fight, the location, the outcome. He had known this was coming. He had known since the valley. "You are still making the same mistake," Naruto said. "It is not a mistake. It is the only path. You believe control prevents pain. It only delays it." Sasuke's Rinnegan blazed. The space around him warped. Dimensional technique, the gravity of a borrowed god eye pulling at reality's fabric. They went to the valley of the end. Neither of them planned it. Neither of them said it. They simply went, drawn by the gravity of a place that had already hosted this fight and would host it one more time. The statues were damaged from 3 years ago. Hashirama's missing arm had been repaired with wooden scaffolding. Madara's cracked face had been left as it was. The waterfall roared between them, unchanged, because water does not care about the dramas of men. Sasuke stood on Madara's head, full Rinnegan, eternal Mangekyo. The 9-tailed beasts that he'd captured in his Chibaku Tensei, all of them sealed in planetary spheres that orbited behind him like a solar system of stolen power. Each one feeding into his Susanoo, which blazed to life around him, massive, perfect, empowered by the combined energy of every tailed beast. Naruto stood on Hashirama's head. Mochi Sage mode. Full awakening spreading across the valley, the water turning white, the stones softening, the statues themselves converting. Kurama, still merged, still present, the orange chakra lacing through the mochi in veins of burning light. The valley became his arena. Every surface, every stone, every drop of the waterfall, now a cascade of dense, sweet-smelling mochi that fell in slow ribbons. Sasuke's Susanoo drew its blade. The weapon blazed with the combined chakra of 9-tailed beasts, a sword that could cut the sky, and might, before this was over. Naruto raised his fists. They fought. The Susanoo's blade met haki-coated mochi arms that expanded and contracted to match every swing. Naruto caught the blade between two palms, and the impact sent shockwaves through the valley that ripped the waterfall apart. He deflected, countered, each movement informed by future sight. 3 minutes of predicted combat streaming through his vision in cascading layers. But Sasuke's Rinnegan adapted. The godlike eye read Naruto's mochi patterns and adjusted. Each swing coming from a slightly different angle, slightly different timing, the analytical power of the Sharingan's final evolution, pushing against the predictive power of future sight. For the first time in the story, Naruto had to work to stay ahead of the read. The Susanoo fired an arrow. Naruto opened his torso and the arrow passed through, but it detonated behind him, the 9-tails chakra erupting in a sphere that caught his back. He flew forward, hit the valley wall, and put a crater in the stone. He pulled himself out. Blood on his chin, the meteor wound had reopened. Sasuke fired again. Naruto deflected with a mochi wall that exploded on contact. The fragments coated the Susanoo's right arm in sticky material that slowed its movement. Sasuke flared his chakra and burned the mochi away. They traded blows for minutes that felt like hours. The valley absorbed the damage, craters, fissures, sections of cliff face collapsing into the basin. The awakened terrain fed Naruto's constructs, and the Rinnegan-enhanced Susanoo cut through them, and the cycle repeated, escalating, each round louder than the last. Sasuke's Indra arrow formed. The ultimate technique, all 9-tailed beasts, chakra compressed into a single bolt of lightning, aimed through the Susanu's bow, the power of gods compressed into an arrow meant to kill. Naruto felt it building. He watched the future branch, 1,000 possible outcomes, narrowing, converging. He removed his scarf, not because the fight demanded it, not because the wind had torn it away. He reached up with both hands in the gap between Sasuke's arrow charging and releasing, and unwound the crimson fabric from his face. Slowly, deliberately, his face, the full face, the teeth, the rows of pointed fangs that split his mouth into something inhuman. The mutation, the thing he had hidden for his entire life, the vulnerability he guarded more fiercely than any technique. Sasuke saw it, again, as he had at this same valley, in a different fight, a lifetime ago. "I have shown you this face before," Naruto said. "I will show it to you again." The Indra arrow trembled in the Susanu's bow. Sasuke's hands shook, not from the power, from something else. "I am not perfect, I never was, but I will always be here, because that is what I am." His voice carried across the valley, low, steady, the same voice from the alley, from the rooftop, from every moment that had ever mattered. That is what a brother is. The Indra arrow released. It crossed the valley, a bolt of annihilation trailing tailed beast chakra like a comet trail. The power behind it could have leveled mountains. Naruto opened his arms. Mochi erupted from every surface of the awakened valley. A dome, a sphere, a shell that enclosed the arrow's entire trajectory. The Indra arrow hit the Mochi sphere's interior and detonated. The explosion contained, redirected, compressed. The sphere bulged, cracked, held. The light faded. The sound stopped. Naruto walked forward, through the smoke, through the fading light, each step heavy, each step certain. The Susanoo was flickering. The tailed beast chakra was depleting. Sasuke had put everything into the arrow. The spectral warrior's form stuttered, dimmed, began to dissolve. Naruto reached the base of the fading Susanoo. He extended his hands. Mochi, not hardened, not haki-coated, soft, warm, the texture of something meant to hold rather than hurt, wrapped around Sasuke's body as the Susanoo vanished. A restraint, a hold, a hug almost. Sasuke thrashed. His remaining chakra flared. Amaterasu sputtered from his bleeding Mangekyo and died against the Mochi surface. He screamed, "Let me go." "No, I have to. You have to stop. You don't understand. I have always understood." The Mochi held, gentle, immovable. The same material that had caught meteors and seal-tailed beasts now held a boy. Because beneath the Rinnegan and the Susanoo and the Fury, Sasuke was still a boy. He had always been a boy. A boy whose family was taken and who had never stopped screaming about it, even when the screaming wore a different name. Sasuke's chakra depleted. The Rinnegan dimmed, the Mangekyo stilled. His body went limp in the Mochi hold, not unconscious, just empty. Every fuel source burned through, every reserve spent. He slumped. "I hate you," he whispered. The words had no heat. They were the words of someone who had run out of everything except the sentence, "I know. You always know. Yes, I'm tired, Naruto. Then rest." Naruto lowered him, gently. The Mochi hold softened and became a cradle that laid Sasuke on the valley floor as carefully as a hand laying down a sleeping child. Sasuke's eyes closed, his breathing steadied. The curse mark, the Mangekyo, the Rinnegan, all of it went quiet. "It is over, Sasuke. Come home." Sasuke slept. The valley was quiet. The waterfall resumed, stone and water returning as the awakening faded for the last time. Naruto sat beside him. He picked up his fallen scarf, tattered, scorched, still crimson, and wrapped it back around his face. He waited until Sasuke was ready to walk. They walked home. The war ended. Treaties were signed, villages rebuilt. The dead were buried and the living carried on because that was what living required. The world adjusted. It adjusted to the fact that a single person had caught 2 meteors, sealed the 10 tails, fought Madara Uchiha to a standstill, and brought Sasuke Uchiha back. Twice. It adjusted the way the world always adjusts to things it cannot control, by making space, by developing a quiet, constant awareness that something vast and ungovernable existed, and that it was, for now, on their side. Nations sent diplomats to Konoha. Intelligence agencies updated their classifications. The bingo book removed Naruto's entry entirely, not because he was no longer a threat, but because no classification level could contain him, and the attempt was becoming embarrassing. Months passed. Konoha's reconstruction was completed. The new village was different. Wider streets, better foundations, a layout that incorporated the scars of Pain's assault into the architecture rather than hiding them. Memorial markers at the points of greatest destruction, gardens where buildings had been, and a memorial stone, the great black stone of Konoha, covered in names, every shinobi who had died in service, generations of sacrifice carved in white letters on black granite. Naruto stood there at 3 p.m., not on a rooftop, not behind a condemned building, not in hiding. He stood at the memorial stone, in the open, in the middle of the day, in full view of anyone who walked by. He held a donut in one hand. His scarf was lowered. The teeth were visible. The pointed, elongated fangs that he had hidden for his entire life. The mutation born from the collision of a reincarnated soul and a tailed beast chakra. The thing that had made children scream and adults reach for weapons. The crack in the armor. The one thing he had protected more fiercely than anything else in his world. He took a bite, chewed, swallowed, took another bite. He ate a donut in front of the memorial stone with his face exposed. And if anyone saw, if anyone stared, if anyone reached for a weapon or gasped or ran, he would be right here, in the open, exactly as he was. Nobody ran. A few civilians walked past. One paused, looked at him, and kept walking. A Genin squad jogged by on their way to training. One of the kids glanced at the massive figure at the stone and nudged her teammate, who looked, and they both kept running. An old woman, a shopkeeper who had once locked her door when his shadow crossed her threshold, walked up to the stone. She placed flowers at the base. She straightened up and looked at the boy, at his face, at the teeth. She nodded. He nodded back. She walked away. Anko found him there. She appeared the way she always appeared, without warning, without ceremony, from a direction that suggested she had been perched on something overhead and decided gravity was a suggestion. She sat beside him on the grass in front of the stone and pulled out dango. She looked at his face, uncovered, in the open. She bit into her dango, said nothing. They ate in silence. The memorial stone held its names. The sun moved across the sky. The village hummed around them. Construction noise, children laughing, the distant bark of Ninken at the training grounds. Two people who had once eaten donuts on a condemned rooftop because the world had given them nowhere else now sat in the village center and ate without hiding. That was the victory. Not the meteors, not the sealed gods, not the wars won or the brothers saved. This, two people, one bag of donuts, silence. The sun was setting when Kakashi found him, the sixth Hokage. Kakashi had taken the hat after the war, reluctantly, the way he did everything, with a slouch and an eye crinkle and the quiet competence of a man who had been avoiding leadership his entire life, only to discover he was built for it. He walked up to the memorial stone, hands in pockets. He stood beside Naruto and looked at the names for a moment. His visible eye found the ones he always found, Obito, Rin, Minato. "I have a question for you," Kakashi said. "I know." "Of course you do." He paused. "Do you want the Hokage seat?" Naruto looked at the mountain, at the carved faces, Hashirama, Tobirama, Hiruzen, Minato, Tsunade. Kakashi's face was being carved now. He could see the scaffolding, the chisel marks, the rough outline of a jawline he recognized. He thought for a long moment. The question wasn't simple. It had never been simple. The Hokage protected the village. The Hokage stood at the top. The Hokage was the name that held it all together. "A Hokage protects the village," he said. "Yes, I have been doing that without the title." Kakashi's eye crinkled. The deepest crinkle, the one that meant something genuine, was happening beneath the mask. "So is that a yes or a no?" Naruto was quiet for a long time. The sun was halfway gone. The sky was the color of donuts, warm, golden, sweet at the edges. "It is a not yet. There are still futures I have not seen. I want to see them first." Kakashi nodded. He understood. The boy who could see the future wanted to experience it before he locked himself to a desk and a hat and the weight of a village's hopes. "Fair enough," Kakashi said. "The hat will wait." Naruto inclined his head. He stood. He rewrapped his scarf, not all the way, looser than before. The lower half of his face covered, but not hidden, not sealed, just worn. The way you wear a scarf, because you choose to, not because you have to. He walked away from the memorial stone, into the village, into the noise and the light and the life of the place that once hated him and now watched him with the awed, uncertain, adjusting gaze of a world that had finally understood what lived among it. He passed the ramen stand. Ichiraku, the old man waved. Naruto raised a hand. He passed the academy, where a new generation of students pressed their faces against the window to watch him go by. He passed the gate, where the guards straightened their postures reflexively. He passed the tree, where Anko had once thrown him a bag of donuts from 3 stories up. He walked through Konoha with the steady, unhurried pace of something permanent. Not fast, not slow. The pace of a mountain moving through the world at its own speed, on its own terms. The last light of the sun caught his scarf, crimson and gold. He never needed their permission to be what he already was.
And that's a wrap on the most unhinged, most dominant, most donut-fueled Naruto story we've ever told. If this hit different, you already know what to do. Like, subscribe, and drop in the comments which scene broke you. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.